Now reconvene this meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board. Can I have a board member certify closed session, please?
Madam Chair, I certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, discussed only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, and that only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunley. Is there a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye.
And can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Hosang. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Donner.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye. All right, and I will turn it over to Dr. Keever for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the board. As we close out 2025, I want to share a few highlights from last week that really underscore, in my opinion, the excitement and exhilaration, maybe, that comes with serving as superintendent. And I want to also express my gratitude. So, for instance, last week, we appreciate the community's patience and perseverance and understanding with the flexibility of 3 closure days over 3 days in a row. So that Friday, Monday, and Tuesday. Just as a reminder, the school division covers 143 square miles, and we do the best we can to balance gathering the latest weather data and available with providing as much notice as possible before we make a schedule change. On that Monday, I may or may not have been standing at my window here at the office in the 10 a.m. range, hoping that it would start snowing to validate the decision that we made, and sure enough, at about 10:15, it did. I want to thank our operations team specifically for spending lots of time on the roads and on our school facilities trying to help ensure that we were ready to go back as scheduled on Wednesday. I do also want to mention that in the event that schools need to close unexpectedly for a possible extended period, we may temporarily shift to remote virtual learning. Information about our closure contingency plan and how our school division will communicate about these schedule changes are available online, and we've shared that via the newsletter information. Also last week, and now in its 10th year, students across all 3 of our high schools had the opportunity to participate in mock interviews. Business leaders, community leaders, folks from around this table volunteered their time to engage with our students and provide feedback on interview skills. It is important to me, as we have talked about through the transition process, that each of our students graduates from WJCC with a plan for their life after high school. Engaging in the mock interview process is just one of the ways that we help to get this accomplished. Last week, also at Matoka Elementary, I had the opportunity to spend some time in a 4th grade classroom. I share with you, in visual evidence in front of you here where I am standing or sitting, this letter that I received in the mail from a 4th grader. So there are a couple things about that. It was an actual letter that was written to me by one of our students. It came, and there were some questions and suggestions for how we handle closures, whether it be for rain or snow or some of those kinds of scenarios. So instead of simply writing a letter back, I decided to go visit the classroom in person and talk about how those decisions were made. It gives an opportunity, again going back to that transition plan that we've talked about, for real-world student-centered learning. I engaged the classroom in a conversation about how we make decisions and what some of those key decision points are as we look at the needs across the community. Student engagement was, in my opinion, palpable. Lots and lots of conversation around whether or not we should have a 1-day spring break or a 5-day spring break, or go to school into July or start in August. The initial letter suggested that we be out of school every time that it rained. And it was through the course of the conversation that we really decided that the 180-day calendar is a pretty good one, and that we were pretty comfortable with what that calendar looked like. It was an exciting time for me. And then, speaking of exciting, I finished the day on Friday at an event where we focused the community-wide conversation around literacy. We've talked about that being a community conversation, and in fact, our partners at the Walmart Distribution Center helped us bring that to life. 144 students were celebrated, and recipients received a brand new bike, some for contributing to a positive community, and others for engaging in the Read to Ride challenge. Over the past 2 weeks of, I've got some tongue twisters today, but talk with my script writer. over the 2 weeks of the Read to Ride challenge, we had 935 pre-K to 5th grade participants who tallied, get this, more than 275,000 minutes of reading. Special thanks to Walmart for an incredible evening for our students and our community. And finally, as we move forward into the rest of this week, I want to wish everyone a restful winter break. That's the entire schools community, with a quick reminder that the school division offices and schools will be closed to the public the 22nd through January 3rd. We look forward to welcoming folks back in January of 2026. Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Keeper. Are there any reports from board members or any updates, Mr. Hosang?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recently attended a New Horizons board of trustees meeting. We received a presentation from the Center for Autism / Newport Academy. And just to give everyone, I guess, a very brief synopsis of what they do, they specialize in education and therapy for students with autism spectrum disorder, which is ASD, and other developmental disabilities. The services they provide are speech, language therapy, occupational therapy, adapted physical education, psychological consultation, life skills, career education, and counseling. They currently have 186 students that are that they service. They said that they can service a little over 200 students, so there's still low capacity for them there. They showed 2 videos. One was a video of a parent that was talking about their son who had received instruction through the Center for Autism, and was just talking about how miraculous his turnaround has been, where before he would barely leave the house, they couldn't get him out of the car, but now he's eagerly walking into the school, they can travel with him now, so there's a lot of benefits that that child and most children are receiving from the center. The second video was from a teacher whose, I believe it was his brother, had previously gone or attended the Center for Autism in Newport Academy, and that was the impetus for him to get a degree in education to go back to teach there. And so it was just a very inspiring speech, and to watch him talk about his brother and what he's doing now in order to help other students. There's just a few other things that we discussed personnel issues as we have done here. I think we are doing a little bit better than New Horizons. New Horizons is on the negative. They've lost more people right now than they've hired. So we are doing a little bit better than them, except I had nothing to do with someone leaving, so I just want to make sure I put that out there for everyone. We talked about our 2027 budget timeline. We approved that moving forward, so they are collaborating with the individuals this month and will be presenting everything to us early next year. They talked about the Governor's School of Science and Technology. I know that we're going to be talking about it a little bit today also, but they provided what a snapshot of the 2025 graduate looked like. And one of the things that they talked about, or they provided, was the SAT scores and the comparison for the SAT scores. And just very quickly, for the national average, it was 1024 for an SAT score. For Virginia, it was 1113. For the governor's school, it was 1395. So it was a big jump. So it's a very, if there's students out there or parents out there that are wondering what their students could do, I mean, this is something that could greatly benefit them. They listed all the colleges that the graduates are attending this year, and they said that scholarships offered to them were almost $4 million. So it was a very big chunk. The next thing they talked about was the CTE recruiting schedule. And it looks like Jamestown has already had their recruiting schedule, or their recruiting time with New Horizons. On January 6th, they will be at Lafayette High School, and on January 20th, they'll be at War Hill High School. So if there's any students that are looking to see what New Horizons is like and what it could benefit them, please attend those. And then they talked about, and I always have to look at this 2 or 3 times because I always try and put in an extra letter or two, but it's Uncrewed Systems Career Fair 2026. It's January 21st from 3 to 6 p.m. at the Newport News Williamsburg Airport. And it's just for, again, students to learn a little bit more about the new program that they have for the aerial system, the unmanned aerial systems. If students are interested in that, they can go and get an idea of what is out there for them and what the training would be. And the final issue was on May 1st, they are going to be having a fundraiser casino night down in Yorktown. So if anyone wants to keep May 1st date open for a fundraiser for New Horizons, please do so.
Thank you, Mr. Hosing. Mr. Riffle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a meeting on December 10th with WHRO, the Hampton Roads Regional Education Authorities. The 23 school divisions came together to talk about, Virginia Symphony came and gave us a presentation, and they talked about the music program they put on in all the divisions across Hampton Roads, and they're spreading into other parts like Isle of Wight, and Owens are growing throughout the community. So we took up that opportunity with our 5th graders, and they just kind of shared kind of their experiences and how that funding works and things like that. So it's all paid through some partnerships through WHRO and some other public-private partnerships to the state level. And then we got an update on the General Assembly's outlook and preview for the 2026 session by Kemper Consulting, and we just kind of heard about how there's not a lot of room in the budget and things like that. So we'll keep us posted. There's similarly bills that have passed to the General Assembly, but were not signed by the governor that we can probably see back, and those might be changing their posture and stuff. They did talk about the accreditation framework having its tweaks and changes. There's a couple articles that they referred to with the Richmond Times and things like that. So there's nothing is concrete. They just wanted to give us a preview and kind of give us kind of a heads up on what to expect, especially as we move into our budgetary cycle. The budget that WHRO talked about with their chair and their CEO still reflected what I said the last meeting, where they lost federal funding for 2026, and they've recuperated enough to follow through until the end of year of 2020, so like July of 2026. But they will have to fundraise again into the latter part of that. We've had 4 vacancies at WHRO's overall organization that they have not retired for, just to kind of keep up with the retention and attrition funding. But generally, that's about it. There's really not much to report besides most of the services that WHRO is providing is still being used at the same kind of level, if not more, as we enter into the testing cycle and move into those things. So that's it, Madam Chair. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Riffle. Anyone else that I missed? No? All right, we will move on to our discussion items. Item 5.01, audit report for year ended June 30th, 2025.
Madam Chair, this evening, Renee Ewing and our guest from Cherry Bakehart will present the audit report. This is I think, an important opportunity for the board and community to know that our school division takes our financial processes incredibly seriously. So Renee, let's kick it off.
Thank you, Dr. Keever. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Annually, we are required to have an audit of our financial records performed by an external audit firm. And this evening, Mr. Zach Lamorta, with Audit Manager with Cherry Bakehart, is here to share with you the results of our audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2025.
Thank you, Renee. Before I get started, I do want to do a quick thanks to Renee, Kelsey, Victoria, and just their whole team in helping us work through the audit. We always ask for a lot of stuff, and they did a great job kind of coming through with everything that we asked for. So appreciate all the assistance. As Renee mentioned, I'm here just to speak on the results of the audit for this year. All very good things as a preview to that. So we'll go through a few of these items today. Just a quick show on who the client service team is from our side. So Laura Harden is the engagement director. Unable to make it today, but James and Graham, they worked with myself on the audit from our side. For the results of the audit for this year, we audited both the WJCCS financial statements as well as the school activity funds for June 30, 2025. The reports were issued on November 25th for the schools and September 29th for the school activity funds. Both reports were unmodified, and that's the best opinion that you can get throughout an audit. So very successful year in terms of that. We also look at any instances of noncompliance with government auditing standards and the specifications provided by Virginia, and noted no noncompliance. So another good piece there. And then finally, no material weaknesses were identified either during the audit, and we'll talk about that a bit more later. In terms of internal control, we don't provide an opinion on internal control specifically, but we do review internal controls, and they help us kind of determine procedures for our audit and things of that nature. If a deficiency in internal controls were to arise, we do report on it and let everyone know. A deficiency just meaning an internal control wasn't working properly, maybe could cause a misstatement in the financial statements, something along those lines. So we'll report on that if we see it, but we don't actually give an opinion on the internal controls. In terms of that material weakness, it's a deficiency that just means there's a good chance there's going to be a material misstatement within the financial statements. A significant deficiency, another form of deficiency, less severe than a material weakness, but still something that we end up reporting on just because it could still have a significant impact. During this year's audit, we noted no deficiencies that we would consider to be a material weakness during the year. We also look at the internal controls for the school activity funds as well, and we provide kind of general recommendations just overall, and these are very common between any school activity funds we do, to be completely honest. So nothing of high concern. It was more of just items that we saw that could use improvement, which included continued training on school board policies for bookkeepers and just the individual schools in general, just so they continue to handle the proper cash receipts and cash disbursements properly as they have been. As well as a lack of segregation of duties inherently with the schools. Just having the principal and bookkeeper are the main ones that are looking at the financial data and the cash receipts and disbursements, which just is inherent risk involved with that with just two individuals. So we just like to call it out as well. We also report on any corrected or uncorrected misstatements. These are adjustments that either we proposed during the audit or anything that ended up just being passed on during the year. Happy to report, none were noted during the year for this audit. Some other stuff that we like to report on as well. So during the year, the schools implemented GASB 101 for compensated absences, as well as GASB 102. GASB 101 resulted in a restatement of beginning that position during the year, as the schools had to go back and kind of retrospectively add or implement GASB 101, causing a restatement. That restatement was about $10.5 million. GASB 102 had no material effect on the financial statements. Outside of those two implementations during the year, no other changes in accounting policies were noted, and there was also no inappropriate accounting policies noted as well. Further, we also look at related parties and related party transactions during the year. Specifically, we just look for anything that's been undisclosed to us, any unusual related party transactions, anything that might be a cause of concern, things of that nature, and happy to report none of that was noted during the year. We also just look at overall just accounting practices utilized, and there was no accounting practices or accounting records that did not have any authoritative guidance behind them, so nothing that lacked authoritative guidance. We also look to see if there's any unusual significant transactions during the year, and these are just things outside the normal course of business that might occur. None of those happened during the year as well that we noted. We look at accounting estimates during the year as well, specifically these that I have listed here, as they're just a bit more sensitive to the financial statements. Changes in inputs or assumptions could affect those certain estimates. We look at those inputs and assumptions as well during the year and noted no issues with those. One of my favorite slides is very quick. The financial statement disclosures themselves are neutral, clear, and consistent with prior years. We do like to point out note 2 within the school activity funds financial statements, just because it does report on something a bit more sensitive to the users, and that's just that it's on a cash basis as opposed to true accrual basis for the financial statements. Some other pieces of note, so we do perform some non-attest services for the schools, and these are just services kind of outside the scope of the regular audit. These include the help of the preparation of the school activity funds financial statements and schedules, as well as some continued assistance with previous GASB implementations, as well as the current implementation for GASB 101. We perform these, management brings on an employee that can oversee these, take responsibility for the services, etc. We noted no independence or ethical concerns between us and the schools. Some other required communications, no difficulties were encountered during the year. No disagreements with management occurred during the audit. We did not consult any outside auditors during the year, and we get, similar to every year, just a list of management representations that we get signed the same day as the report letter. Some others were not aware of any management consultations that were made during the year. Any issues or findings that pop up during the audit, we were able to handle during the audit and were resolved during the year. No fraud or illegal acts were noted during the year, and there were no events or conditions that would indicate any sort of substantial doubt that the school would be able to continue as a going concern. Just a few more, I promise. So we have 3 sections: so the RSI, supplementary information, and other information. Just like to point out that we don't specifically report on these information. We don't perform basic procedures over these. We keep it very limited for these areas of the ACFR. Usually just kind of reading through it, making sure it's consistent with the remaining portions of the ACFR, and that it's not like any sort of misleading or any incorrect information within there. All those 3 pieces of the ACFR were, no issues were noted during the year. Finally, last slide, just some upcoming financial reporting changes that are coming up, GASB 103 and GASB 104, and as always, we're always happy to talk with schools and management just on the impact those might have to the financial statements. I have my contact information there along with Laura's up there as well, but also happy to take any questions now if there are any.
Any questions from board members? No? All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mr. Morta, and thank you, Ms. Ewing, and your team for the outstanding work that you do every day. Because it's only because of you and your team that we are able to have such a wonderful audit report. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mentioning that, Madam Chair, I was going to say the same
Oh,
thing.
sorry.
Yeah, we are incredibly blessed with a incredibly strong financial team. So thanks, Renee. Thanks, Kelsey. It's a terrific audit.
Right, we will move on to item 5.02, redistricting process update.
Yes, ma'am. We spent a little bit of time with the board in June, beginning the process of talking about redistricting. And that process is going to come into sharper focus over the course of the presentation today, and certainly as we move into the months of January through June of 2026. I think it's important for us to keep the board engaged in that conversation, as well as our community engaged in that conversation. Cara Wall has been leading that work for us, and she will kick us off tonight. Cara?
Thank you, Dr. Keever. As Dr. Keever already alluded to, in June, the school board engaged in a preliminary conversation with MGT regarding redistricting timeline, data collection, and principles to guide the redistricting process. And as we dig into many pieces of data tonight, I would like to reintroduce you to Marcy Horner, our project manager, who will begin our presentation and is seen here on the screen. So Marcy, take it away.
Thank you so much. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, and then I need to get permission to share. So if somebody can allow me to share my screen or present my screen.
You should be able to now.
Perfect. All right, one moment. Let me do that. Make sure that I can share my right screen. And let's see. Oh, wait a second. Okay, I believe you should be seeing my title screen. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, excellent. All right, thank you so much for meeting with me again. I have a lot of things to share with you, so I'm going to go rather quickly, and I also tend to speak quickly anyway. So I apologize if I start going too quick. Please just let me know. Just wanted to first talk a little, just briefly mention about MGT. We do have over 100 years of combined demographic analysis, over 150 boundary review and redistricting projects, over 1,000 student forecasts and reports, and over 300 master planning projects. Agenda for today, for this, I guess it's still afternoon, for this afternoon, I'm going to show you our resident forecast, which involves student data analysis, forecast factors, the division forecast, go into the survey results with Cara is going to help me present those and lead that into guiding principles, show some complexities of the current boundaries, and then what to expect next. Just briefly want to show a visual of our methodology. This is The methodology for the student enrollment or the population forecast is based on your local data. It's based on your student data, creating factors from your local data, your local birth data, birth counts. Mobility comes from your student population, current and 3 historic years. Student yield factors derived from your student data and the development research that was actually done, including on-the-ground research. So we went and actually drove through the developments to count how many houses. So I want to get into maybe touch about each one of those. The student, again, the data analysis, it involves us receiving student data from the division. We geocode your student data, and then we divide the division into small planning or study areas. This allows us to help capture unique growth patterns, housing changes, and demographic shifts that are occurring in specific neighborhoods rather than assuming the whole community changes the same way. This allows us to see the density. As you see here, the student density map shows the density overlaid your current elementary attendance areas. This matrix was also derived from that analysis. Let me just briefly explain how to read this matrix. As you read the rows, you see the resident or the attendance area, the count of students within the attendance areas. So, for example, Clara Bird Baker has 414 K through 5 students that live within the boundary. Of those 414 students, 400 of them attend Clara Bird Baker Elementary School. 1 attends DJ Montague, 1 attends J. Blaine Bladen Elementary, and so on down that row. To identify the enrollment for Clara Bird Baker, the enrollment was at 500 students when we received the data. 66 of those were pre-K students. 7 of those were from outside the division. So a total of 427 students enrolled from the division. 400 living in the Clara Bird Baker Elementary attendance area. 3 live in the J. Bladen Elementary attendance area, 1 in James River, etc. down the column. So you can see and identify the exact students that live within the attendance area and where they attend. From those numbers, we get the utilization analysis. These 2 columns here show the resident utilization. So in other words, if all of the resident students were attending that school, this would be your utilization for the resident population. The columns, these 2 columns to the right are the enrolled columns, so those students that actually are enrolled in the school and the utilization for those. So you should have this or have a PDF was sent over so you can take a better and closer look at this. Also, I'm just going to briefly go past the middle school and high school, but we do have this and you can take a closer look at this with the documents provided. Okay, leading into forecast factors, and I am a bit of a data nerd, and Carmen can attest to that, so I'm going to really try not to bore you with a lot of the details of the data, but I do want to touch on some things starting with the birth rate analysis. So essentially, what we're assuming is that the kindergarten class is going to fluctuate with the birth counts. We did receive local birth data from both Williamsburg and James City County, so those are applied accordingly to those small study areas. The blue, the dark blue are the birth counts for historic. The current is those numbers in the pink, and then the forecasted numbers are in the are to the right. The dark blue is all of the birth counts. The bars below that is your kindergarten information. So the gray is your historic kindergarten count. That pinkish purple is your current count, and then moving forward is the forecasted count of kindergarten students. Also, the purple line is a capture rate analysis. Now, looking historically, you've had 2 years of 97% capturing 97% of the births. Last year dropped down to 86%. This year, it rose back up to 91%. And we're assuming as the forecast grows that we're going to continue at about that same capture rate. The second factor is your mobility factor, which also is called a cohort survival rate. This is done by actually looking at your student population. So the attendance areas, again, are the students that live within those attendance areas. And it is as they progress from kindergarten first to second, and we take a 4-year average. This helps us track the gains and losses per grade level as they progress through the grades. You see on that 8 to 9 column that there's a large jump in students that are coming from 8th grade to 9th grade in all of the attendance areas, and that's often very typical as students progress into high school. And this gives you, again, some good information. I'll leave it at that for now because we have, like I said, a lot to cover. Student yield factors were derived directly from your student data. Geocoding your students, placing them over the identified parcels of the newer residential developments, and determining what your student yield factors are. So you see in this third column here that for single family detached, the student yield factor that we're applying for the forecast is 0.545. So the division can expect to gain about 55 students for every 100 new single-family detached homes. That was also calculated for the apartments. There was a little bit of a difference between the apartments in James City County and the apartments in Williamsburg, so we were making sure that we used that detailed information. We have also single-family attached or condos / townhomes for both of those areas, again, a little bit different, and then a small number of affordable housing. So those are the 3 main factors. Those student yield factors specifically are applied to the residential developments that, once again, these come from research that we've done. We've spent a lot of time contacting planners, researching, contacting developers, driving the area specifically to identify the active and the upcoming projects, residential development projects. And you can see them here. We did put them over a map of the elementary attendance area so that you can kind of identify where those are. There are 27 projects that are active in 8 elementary attendance areas. Over 2,000 units are included in the forecast. 64% of those new housings will be in Stonehouse Elementary, and 44% of those units are single-family detached. You can see by this slide a little bit more of those. Once again, a lot of units are coming in into Stonehouse, and then the next largest area that they're coming in is in Laurel Lane Elementary attendance area. So I'm going to stop there. I think I'll briefly check to see if you have any questions before I move on to the forecast.
Thank you. Board members, are there any questions at this point? You ready to move forward? All right, thank you. We can move forward.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So here is the forecast for your resident student population. And these colors here is really, if you're familiar with Excel, I just did a conditional formatting so that it draws the eye to the high and low numbers. And that's really just the significance of that. So you can see these dark blue cells are the higher numbers, and these darker pink purple colors are the lower numbers. So it gives you an idea, again, we have the historic columns here, the current number here, and the forecasted numbers for the next 10 years. Also, just to point out at this time that just like anything when we're doing forecasting, there's a lot of information that we gather, and we know a lot about what's coming up in the next few years, right? There's things in the 5 to 10 years that we don't know about yet. They haven't been brought to the city council or the county. They haven't come to fruition yet. So there will be changes as it goes to the 5 to 10 year forecast. And also we don't actually know who's been born in those years yet as well. So a lot of those birth trends are based on the trends that we have, but until they're born, the kindergarten is the most challenging to forecast. The mobility factor or the cohort survival rates are applied as you progress, once again, from one grade to the next, year by year. The residential housing, the housing projects are applied to the entirety of the forecast, and the birth factors are applied and impact all of this area to show that just how much really is impacted by birth rates. Your totals are down here for the division, and you can see, once again, some interesting things that I'd love to discuss. So would love to discuss in detail the data because that's my nerdy side, but I'm going to leave it for now. Anybody feel free to talk to me about nerding out, that's totally fine later. There are some students that are not included in the forecast. These are mostly out of division students or students identified not to be included in the forecast. So here's the total number of the students here. So fairly steady population as we look out through the 10-year forecast. As you can see here, this light blue is the current population, and it's fairly steady, just losing a relatively small amount of students. Here is those individual study areas. You can see that the dark red is where more loss is forecasted, and the darker the green, the higher growth in those areas. And again, this is, we're able to look at and identify these individual areas. Looking at specifically at elementary schools, we see in this slide the capacity is this dark bar, and the darker blue is the current number. The little bit lighter blue is forecasted 3 years out, 2028, and the lighter color is forecasted to 2030. So you'll just see the relationship between your elementary schools and the resident population, so the capacity and that resident population. There are areas here where you have capacity for schools, you have capacity in the schools. There are areas that are of concern, and I'm sure that you are aware of those, like Stonehouse, for example, as we discussed, there's a lot of residential units coming into that area. It's already overutilized and is expected to continue to be. So why use resident projections for redistricting? They reflect where students live, not just where they attend. Enrollment projections can be distorted by transfers or programs within a school. Resident projections reveal true geographic demand, and they support equity and long-term planning. So I think it's important to understand the difference between using resident projections, which is more reliable than enrollment projections, because enrollment projections can change because you add another variable of a transfer pattern that may change. All right, any questions about the forecast?
So I'll jump in here and talk about survey results. And on the next slide, you'll be able to see that we collected family, staff, and student perspective. We conducted the survey last month. It spread across from November 7th to November 30th. Students in grades 4 to 10 were invited to participate, and given the implementation timeline that we've discussed, juniors and seniors would not still be WJCC schools students when the new attendance zones are implemented. Family and staff respondents were asked if they had prior knowledge of our redistricting efforts prior to receiving the survey. 81% of staff members indicated that they did, in fact, have prior knowledge, and 48% of family respondents said yes. On the next slide, survey respondents were provided with 14 factors that you can see on the screen. They were asked to pick their 5 most important factors regarding WJCC schools. Then, of the 5 they selected, they were asked to rank the 5 from most important to least important. Among family respondents, the most important factor regarding WJCC schools is quality of the school and teachers. That's at the top. Among staff respondents, the most important factor regarding WJCC schools is small class sizes and staff caseloads. Again, that's reflected at the top and then sorted down. And finally, among student respondents, the most important factor regarding WJCC schools is going to the same school as my friends and classmates as we move through middle and high school. On the next slide, the table compiles the data from the previous 3 slides into one. Here you can see where there is both convergence and divergence of thought in ranking of the top 5 factors based on respondent group.
That makes sense.
This slide is a visual representation of all of the factors, all 14 factors, and how they ranked. The darker the green, the more important that factor is to the response group. So the factors are sorted by most important to least important by family member responses. So you can see that the factor quality of the school and teachers is the upper left green square. And that's the most important factor for families, as we discussed, whereas the most important factor for staff, small class sizes and staff caseloads, is represented by the darkest green shade in the middle staff column. And then finally, we offered each respondent group the opportunity to share other thoughts about the redistricting process. Top themes from each group are on the screen. And as you're reading through, in most cases, the themes of open-ended responses aligned with factors that were already represented in the survey. So for example, a theme from staff in the open-ended portion of the survey was connected to class size and supporting student needs, which, as we've discussed, was the top-ranked factor for staff.
Perfect, thank you so much. I think it's very important to get that feedback from the community, to hear what they are, what is most important to them. As we look back at this, I want to just point out that these purple are not determined, or they're not directly impacted by boundary modifications, right? It's important, obviously it's very important, but boundary changes or boundary modifications are not necessarily going to change these. These other key factors or important things that the community and staff and students have indicated can be impacted by boundary modifications. There are some varying approaches to balancing student population, and this process is a boundary review process. So we use our student forecasts, we use boundary scenarios, and the decision criteria are guiding principles, which is what we're kind of leading into. Other ways to help balance the student population that is not related to boundaries would be using programming or policy. Gone over this slide briefly in our last presentation, just a brief reminder that guiding principles guide boundary scenarios. They give context to decisions, and they are a rule book for consensus. Guiding principles shouldn't be ranked. The criteria conflict with one another. They will drive the board and leadership consensus, and they can be used to identify any unintended consequences. They do push and pull against one another. If balancing utilization, the benefit of using that is that we'll balance class sizes across all schools. Challenges would be that you might have imbalanced maybe demographics, maybe increased transportation costs, and it will also increase the impact on students. And as we saw, it's important for families that they choose or have a desire to minimize impact. So just understanding, if we're looking at minimizing impact, that's the benefit of moving as few students as possible. The challenge is that it is going to have little impact on balancing utilization. So as we look at this again, to look at what guiding principles we can define from the results of the survey, looking back at the ability for students to continue attending the same school they currently attend or are known to attend, that would be minimized impact. Balancing enrollment would be utilization. Keeping students together, feeder patterns, create neighborhood schools, etc. So we've taken those and drafted the guiding principles, and these are definitely up for your discussion at this point or at a later point. These are again what the steering committee would be utilizing to create and guide their scenario building, and then again what the board will be using to help determine the approval process. I did put a feeder pattern down here on the bottom, avoid splitting up elementary classes in the transition to middle school and high school. Just a note about that there's a difference between making that a goal, aligning feeder patterns, which at this point I don't believe is a goal, or using it to, because once we start affecting feeder patterns, we're going to affect more students. But there are some times where you can make changes, and as you make a change, aligning the feeder pattern with that change. So there is maybe a degree of direction as we come to the feeder pattern discussion, and I do want to take a look with you at the boundary complexities of your division. And I'm going to show you this. If you haven't seen it before, it is open and available public for you to use this URL down here. And I'm going to just put this up on my screen. Here we go. Okay. Looking at the map now, I wanted to have a little script so I don't go off too much. Okay. So when it comes to boundary planning, it's important for you to understand the current challenges your community faces. This is a web application tool for you to use to become familiar with the boundaries.
Hey,
So,
Mercy, I'm sorry to interrupt. We still see your slide, not the map.
you still, okay.
Sorry.
Give me 1 second. What is, okay, thank you so much. All right, now do you see the map? No. Oh, let me hit the final share button. There we go. All right, is the map visible now?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so I just want to point out, because the goal for this is to show it to you, give you a brief demonstration, and then for you to go as homework and really get into this tool. You're not going to break it. It's not going to change anything. This is going to allow you to become familiar with your boundaries. So a couple of features I want to point out. The search bar here allows you to put in your address or any other address if you choose to put that in to zoom into a specific area. You also can change the base map by clicking this icon here. You can change it to some imagery, some satellite imagery. You can change it to anything that's available here if it's easier for you to read. I'm going to go back to the topographic map. Another just brief thing to look at is if I click on an area, a pop-up comes up. If I, right in this pop-up, right, this little rectangle right here, if I click that, it docks the pop-up to get it out of your way so you can still look at what you're seeing on the map. So again, this is interactive, so I'm going to show you how to use it. I'm going to point out some of the complexities. It's not meant to show you all of the challenges with the boundaries, but I'll point out a few so maybe so you can identify what to look for. This section here on the right, it shows you all of the layers of the map, and the ones that are checked on are the layers that are visible. So if you want to look at a different area, or you want to say, I want to add the middle schools or the high schools, just check those on and off, and you can see all of them by checking them on and off. We have boundary outlines. So right now we have the middle school boundary outline. I can change it to the elementary school boundary outline. I have those colored in a specific way, which I'll show you a little bit later. And you can also look at the fill. So right now, here's the elementary fill. Here is the middle school filled attendance areas and the high school filled attendance areas. So just a couple of things to show you. So if I look up here at Stonehouse Elementary, you can see this is obviously a contiguous attendance area. We're looking down here at Clara Bird Baker. This is a good example of a attendance area that is non-contiguous. Here at Matoka, you can see that this is an example of an attendance area that has an island zone. And you also, just as you look at some non-contiguous attendance areas there, and also high school has some. And I'm showing you all this for a reason. Really, what the point of showing you this now is just to explain and go over the feeder system to show you how students move from one school to the next. So for example, which elementary school feeds into which middle school feeds into which high school. A clean feeder system ensures that students from the same neighborhoods stay together as they advance through the school levels, and that school boundaries align smoothly between levels. And we've heard from some that this is important to them. A split feeder is where some of the elementary students go into one middle school and some go into another middle school. What we want to avoid is a small split where a single neighborhood or a small percentage of students are isolated into a different middle school. So let me put on the elementary attendance areas filled and the middle school, and I just want to show you an example real quick. So let me show you, here we see DJ Montague, or sorry, yes, it is. So here's another little trick. If you click on it and you have more than one layer open, you can use the arrows to highlight the different areas. So as you can see here, here's DJ Montague. You can see their attendance area with the boundary outlined here of James Blair. So you can see here that there are small pockets of the students that are in the attendance area for DJ Montague that are going to, some of them, these are going to the James Blair. Sorry, the majority is going to James Blair. These pockets are going to Hornsby, and then this section down here is going to Berkeley Middle School. So it's an example of probably a large population going to one middle school, and then smaller populations going to different middle schools. Another way to see this is turning on all of the elementary and middle school and high school outlines. And I know this looks like maybe, you know, a lot of colors. Just want to point out, I did this intentionally so that you can see areas of alignment and areas of misalignment. You can see here that the high school and the elementaries are aligned. In this section, you can see that there are alignments of all three, but really there's not a lot of that. In this section, you can see the blue and the red that are aligned, but there's not a lot of alignment. And let me just show you how this affects some students. If I zoom into this area here, looks like this is Long Hill Road. If I zoom into this area here and I click on it, this area here joins all of these kids in the south, and they attend Matthew Whaley Elementary School. So we're talking about this community, like one community attending Matthew Whaley Elementary School. If I click over to the next middle school, you can see now that this community is now separated from almost all the other kids that they just spent 6 years with and are going to James Blair Middle School. As we move on to high school, again focusing on this community here, we see that now they're once again separating from the kids that they've just spent 3 years with and are going to a whole different high school. I bring this up because there are challenges that the community is facing, and if you as board members aren't hearing about them yet, you will likely hear about them.
You've got 2 board members who live in that community.
Oh, do you? Okay. I just say that I'm somebody who used to work at the office of an elementary school. When my babies were little, that's how I started getting into the schools. And I say that if you aren't hearing complaints about this, then somebody is at the school level, possibly in the division staff, are getting phone calls and questions about them. But it will come up as we continue, as we go through this process, because once again, you have 2 very conflicting feedbacks from your community. You're saying, one of them saying, don't move us, we want to stay in the school that we're, actually 3 conflicting, don't move us, we want to stay where our kids are currently attending. You have the division saying that we now have a need to redistribute our population to balance our utilization, and then you have another population saying, I want to go with my community or with my school onto the next grades. So those are all conflicting with one another. And will be something that we need to be looking forward to in the boundary review process to some extent, and that really is up to you to determine at what extent. Currently, the scope is just to affect the elementary attendance areas, but I don't want you to go in blind and think that if we just adjust elementary attendance areas, that isn't going to have an impact. So again, if we adjust middle school and high school attendance areas, it will impact more kids. If we don't, it will also impact kids, because you are going to have then different communities going to different schools as they go from different levels. So similar attendance areas are better for communities. There are some challenges, obviously, and I don't take that lightly. Your elementary or your middle schools, you have some really close together. You have high schools that are very, very close together, and that is challenging when you have a large area as you do in your division. So having said all that, I think I need to stop sharing and go back to my this one, share, go back to that. And all right, so what to expect next? We are past, we're now in the boundary where we do iterative scenarios to try to do the work that we need to based on the guiding principles. Eventually, we'll get to scenarios where we're ready to communicate those with the community. We'll seek those out, seek out feedback, do some community forums, and then by next year be able to present a final recommendation. This work is, the framework of it is data-driven. It's meant to be transparent, informative. It is an iterative process. We'll continue to create scenarios to the best of the ability using those content experts from the division. I'm from here, my natural instinct is going to use the numbers and the balancing utilization because that's the role that I play, but the role that people in the steering committee or the committee that we have will play will be local experts, transportation experts, community experts, division experts on a bunch of different things. And so it will be collaborative with both with the division and the community using the feedback and the guiding principles. That is my presentation, and I'm going to open it for discussion and also go to this back to the guiding principles slide for you to have any conversation, because while this is a draft and can be certainly moved to go forward to say, yes, these are the guiding principles we want, I want you to be able to have that discussion and say, this might not, whatever it is you need to discuss when it comes to these guiding principles.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think that we are administratively and through our consultant looking for the board to discuss and affirm where we are headed with the guiding principles, because those next steps involve additional outreach to the community, additional communication, and we just want to be sure that we're tracking together in the same direction.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Keever. I will encourage board members to provide some amount of, feedback. I know this was a lot to take in, but just would be good to hear people's thoughts at this juncture. If anyone wants to kick it off. Or I'll call on people, put them on the spot.
I'll speak
Go ahead,
since I
Mrs.
giggled.
Yeah, okay.
I think I appreciate what you said around the guiding principles and how they kind of pull on each other in a web, and grounding at least the first swag at it in data, at least from my perspective, because at least from the data, then you can tweak from there. And in the thoughts around, right, at least if you start from a school utilization perspective, then that kind of gets the schools at a more equitable space in terms of, do we have kids in learning cottages? Do we have, are certain schools overcrowded versus others? And then I think you layer on, are there some schools now, because of the way that we've done utilization, are going to be higher needs? Are there others that, as we think about from a transportation perspective, creating schools that make sense and having neighborhood schools? And so to me, I like starting with the data and then layering on the other pieces. I also think that as we look at the overall with redistricting, those islands, and especially when you look at the middle school and high schools, I think that's something as a board member I would be interested in looking at and considering addressing, because like that one neighborhood that you showed for the Matthew Whaley, living that as your kid, my child I think is like one of 6 in her middle school from her grade, and it was great. She got to meet new kids, but that's all City of Williamsburg kids that are split. And so how do you think about, even if there is some splitting of schools, like that one in that James Blair example, well, it might make sense that all those kids go to Blair because you've now made a neighborhood school. And so maybe they might split from some of their Matthew Whaley friends, but there's a larger group of contiguous kids that are in that same neighborhood. So I think there's just different slices that we have to take, but once you start with the data.
Thank you, Mrs. Donner. Mrs. Hunley, do you have a comment?
Yeah, when I saw transportation, the first thing I thought is nothing moves until we move. And that's very important because we're so spread out in the county. So to me, that's going to be very, and just having enough drivers and things like that. That's very important to me, and definitely utilization. I know we hear a lot about from other school divisions that had feeder patterns. They feel that that's more successful, but I don't have enough information on that part yet. But that is something that I hear a lot of. They wish that students traveled from this elementary to this middle to this high. So those are my top three.
Thank you, Mrs. Henley. A quick question, if I can interject, on the capacity analysis slide, I believe it's 25 on our deck. Does that, remind me if that takes into account the capacity once the preschool wings are done?
It does. I believe that slide is to be representative of once pre-K is in the North Campus and South Campus, the capacity that would be available in those buildings.
Okay. Were there any other comments, Dr. Carlos?
Yes, there was a lot of discussion about a lot of numbers, but I'm curious as to, do you have any idea as to how many actual students are going to be impacted by having to move, or, in order to meet all these principles? Are we talking about a big number of students, or everybody's just going to flow for the most part where they are now? Do you have a concept? Do you know what I mean?
I would say, Dr. Cavazos, that we don't know that yet. That part of the next iterative process is looking at how do you start to put lines down on maps, and what do those lines do, and that will start to give us a sense of scope and numbers. And then I think there's also the scenario of, while we may be able to address a situation at the elementary level, in doing so, are we creating a situation at the middle school and high school level that is more complex for us? So I think that numbers begin to be part of the iterative process as we get into the spring and start looking at what some of those boundaries could be.
Makes sense.
What else? Mike, do you have any thoughts or?
No, I mean, not at this point. It's just going to be an issue of, obviously, coming from Stonehouse. One, Stonehouse Elementary School is already overcrowded. Two, we're going to have the biggest area of increased housing, increased students. So there's going to be a major shift, I guess, for the Stonehouse district of students that are not going to be going to Stonehouse Elementary School anymore, may not be going to Norwich Elementary School anymore. And so I think families are going to have to start thinking about this and having that in the back of their mind to say, hey, look, my student may not be going to where I think they're going to be going, or where they're going currently. I mean, I think that's going to be a big shift for a lot of families moving forward. But hopefully they understand that we are trying to do this in the best, what's best for the students, what's best for the school system moving forward. So,
Ms. Walt, just remind us, if you don't mind, of the percentage of families that indicated awareness of redistricting. Was it 50-50?
48-52. I
Okay,
think.
so we will continue from the division administrative perspective to communicate broadly that this is something that is happening within our organization. We've known it's something that needs to happen within our organization as we bring on the pre-K facilities. And the more I think we talk about it and keep it in front of folks, to your point, Mr. Hosang, there will be continued awareness. Maybe not always agreement, but certainly awareness that this is being discussed, and here are the different iterative processes that it will undergo.
just to piggyback off what Kim was saying is, I mean, one of the things that I would be looking at is this feeder pattern. I mean, I think it's important for students, once they are with a group of students in elementary school, to keep that going into middle school, to keep that going into high school. That's just something that I think helps students. There's going to be a shift. There's going to be different students going to different places, so you'll be meeting new students throughout. But I just think that's one of the important things to consider also.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Riffle, do you have any comments?
Nothing additional. I think it's important to start with the utilization part of it and then move into the idea that when we think about minimizing impact, like, it's important to think that some people aren't even here yet that we're going to be impacting, right? Like, there's families and people moving into our community, things being built, that's important to start with the utilization part to begin with. It just kind of creates, as Ms. Donner started to say, was at least a place where we understand like overcrowding is at least going to be solved, right? But the point is like, what does our student makeups at each division school look like? That's important to look like maybe down the road. So
Thanks. Ms. Chen, any comments?
I'll just quickly say that I agree with my school board colleagues. I think the focus and where we should really begin is looking at what the data can tell us, the utilization piece, and starting with elementary schools, of course, and then seeing how that trickles down and what effects that has into middle and high school. Say that in terms of the communication piece, I would reiterate, and this is something that we had discussed in our earlier meetings with Dr. Kiever, is continuing, seconding what he said, the awareness in the community. We do have survey results, and I do believe that these survey results do reflect the priorities of the different stakeholders, family, staff, and student, but we also know that we don't always have the greatest participation in surveys that go out. I know the recent report we had at our last meeting, we had good feedback in terms of the results, but in terms of percentage participation, it wasn't ideal. We talked about trying to increase that. So I would just want to emphasize that that would be an important piece, making sure that, I don't know, 2,000 families, I'm sure we could probably try to reach more. I don't know what percentage that is of all the families out there. Is that considered a large percentage of participation, or?
Yes, it is relative to other surveys.
That's good.
It's very high. It is a little bit difficult to calculate because each household could have multiple children, where there might be, one guardian or parent might represent multiple children. So it's not as easy as saying that the denominator's 11,000.
Yeah, understandable, right. So really just emphasizing that awareness piece. And then I would be curious to know, as we move forward into the next steps, just scrolling down here, I know that we have, as it was mentioned, it's iterative. There's going to be a committee that's really digging into this. I would be curious to know who are we being very, how intentional, well, I understand we are, but I want to know the details as to who is going to be part of that committee and who's going to, how are those voices, the different perspectives, and making sure that we are representing, that we feel like it is representative, and that the, perspectives and the different guiding principles are being considered. So that's just some of the thoughts that I have right now.
All right, thank you. Dr. Kiever, do you feel like you got some feedback that's helpful, or do you have specific questions?
I think we're headed in the direction that we need to head. Cara, just remind us again some things that we should anticipate in the next couple weeks into January.
So exactly what Ms. Chen was alluding to about bringing forward the steering committee, identifying that process. We have historically sent out a community-wide mailer in February, and the timeline of that mailer distribution, and that reaches every household, not just individuals associated with us, staff or families. So the timeline of that mailer will be dictated by our community engagement process so that information can be reaching the broadest amount of people possible who may not otherwise be receiving emails from us already. But that's next.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that presentation. That was a lot of work and very detailed. Ms. Horner, thank you so much for your time and all your efforts, and look forward to hearing more.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Have a good evening. At this juncture, I would propose maybe a quick break. I think the next two presentations are lengthy. Does that sound okay? 5-minute break?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we will adjourn and Nor? All right, we will reconvene and we will head to our next presentation, item 5.03, profile of a WJCC graduate, class of 2025.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Presentation this evening, we're attempting to share with you the profile of the class of 2025, the WJCC graduate for 2025. The information presented this evening and the work supporting the success of our graduates represents, in my opinion, one of the most collaborative efforts that we have within the school division. School leadership, accountability and assessment, school counseling, our high school principals, the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, their graduation coaches involved, school improvement specialists involved, and staff of our 3 high schools. We want to give a special thank you to Dr. Molly Guthinger, our supervisor for data, program evaluation, and accountability, for helping us get this data together so that we can present it for you this evening. I wanted to start with a brief key performance indicator progress update. And our strategic plan key priority, as you know, and as we've talked about, is focused on academic achievement, college and career readiness, and educational equity. And there are a couple of data points that we've added in here for you with in corresponding to the presentation this evening. So as an example, the target rate for percentage of annual cohort students participating in future-ready employment, enlistment, and enrollment opportunities is 90%. You're also aware that the state has been undergoing some revisions to the support framework and the idea of the 3 E's, and so there are probably 2 ways to present this data. And we are giving you both because we want to kind of share with you where we are. The percentage of cohort students who earn points for participating in the 3 E's is about 65%, so 643 out of 985. That is reflective of students who earned the points in the 3E framework, and not all students had experiences included within the framework. We think perhaps a better number is looking at the 92%, and those are students who had experiences within the framework, work-based learning, earning a credential, etc., 905 out of 985. That is not specifically tied back into the 3E, so it's nuanced, and we're sharing both of those with you. As we continue to work on and learn about the 3E framework, we will continue to provide you that information. There will be some more discussion this evening around the 3E pieces in terms of what we're looking at as we move forward. The percentage of annual cohort students completing all requirements for graduation as measured by the Federal Graduation Indicator. You're going to hear a lot of letters this evening. The FGI is that Federal Graduation Indicator. Our rate is at about 91%, target at 95%. Percentage of students in the annual cohort completing all requirements for graduation or an approved alternative education program as measured by 3 more letters, the CCR, the cohort completion rate, is at 97%. And then the other key performance indicator we want to reference this evening is the number of the percentage of students enrolled in advanced courses in programming by 5%. We set the marker at 63% as an organization. We are now at 66% with this particular year, which is up 8 percentage points year over year. So as we continue to talk about Elevate to 28 and KPIs, I believe we want to see that target rate continue to go higher and more students having opportunity for additional and more rigorous courses. So this evening we will spend some time providing you specific data related to the class of 2025 and our progress within the new 3E framework. As an aside, in your content, you'll also see some information related to SAT and ACT performance of our students. That is performance of our students in comparison to the state and compared nationally as well. We will likely not spend much time this evening, if any, talking about SAT and ACT. You have a 1-page overview in board docs. Dr. Worley?
Good evening. The next slide here summarizes demographic reporting group data for WJCC's 2025 cohort. The following reporting groups: economically disadvantaged, special education, military connected, English learner, and homeless, are displayed in shades of green on the left, and the ethnicity reporting groups of white, black, Hispanic, Asian, and other are displayed in shades of blue on the right. Please note that students may be in more than one group or category within these graphs. For example, a student could show up in Hispanic, special education, and military connected at one time. The class of 2025 began with a cohort of 985 students. The Virginia Department of Education tracks high school students in cohorts to measure graduation outcomes. And you heard Dr. Kiever refer to the multiple acronyms that we may use. But you may recall from previous presentations in the past over the years that one of these acronyms was OGR, for on-time graduation rate. This percentage reflects students who graduate within 4 years with a standard diploma, an advanced studies diploma, or an applied studies diploma. The class of 2025 had a 93.4% OGR, which is slightly above the state average of 92.7. OGR rates are published on the VDOE's school quality profiles, and they're often referenced in press releases to highlight school division progress. It is important to note that while we will continue to monitor our OGR, it was a key factor in the former accreditation system. Under the VDO's new School Performance and Support Framework, the Federal Graduation Indicator, or FGI, is now used to measure progress, and as a result, we will focus on this indicator moving forward in the presentation. The next few slides show data relating to the Federal Graduation Indicator, which I will now refer to as FGI, for our division and our 3 schools. The FGI is the percentage of students in the cohort who earned a standard diploma or an advanced study diploma within 4 years of entering high school as a 9th grader. The FGI is now used to measure performance within the state's new School Performance and Support Framework. As a reminder, the difference between FGI and OGR is the OGR includes students earning a standard diploma, plus students earning an advanced diploma, plus students who earned an applied studies diploma, while the FGI includes only standard and advanced diplomas. The next slide provides a comparison of our WJCC Class of 2025 FGI to the state. Our WJCC FGI represented in green on the left is 91.2% compared to the state rate of 90.8% in blue on the right. The next slide displays 5 years of our FGI data, the cohorts from 2021 through the current year of 2025. Looking at the far right, you see our FGI for the class of 2025 is 91.2%, or 898 of 985 students graduating within 4 years with an advanced or standard diploma. The next 3 slides will provide FGI data for our individual high schools. Each slide shows 5 years of data from 2021 to 25. The high school's FGI is represented by the gray bar on the left. The rate for WJCC is the green bar in the middle, and the blue bar on the right represents the FGI for the state. The number of students in the school's cohort is displayed under each school year as the end count, and the number within the gray bar is the number of one-time graduates for this school's class of 2025. This slide shows Jamestown High School FGI data. Looking at the set of bars on the far right, for 2025, Jamestown had 307 students in its cohort. 285 graduated on time for an FGI of 92.8%. Next slide shows 5 years of data for Lafayette High School. The gray bar represents LHS data over time. And looking at the far right on this slide, the Lafayette class of 2025 has 327 students in its cohort, with 292 of these students graduating on time with an FGI of 89.3%. Our third school, War Hill, is also represented by the gray bar for each school year. The War Hill class of 2025 had 351 students in its cohort, with 321 of these students graduating on time with an FGI of 91.5%. The next slides give us a quick snapshot of our FGI compared to our like school divisions across Virginia. As a reminder, our like school divisions are similar in enrollment, in demographics, and budget. The WJCC FGI rate is slightly above 2 similar school divisions, equal to 1 division, and slightly lower than 3 of our like school divisions. The next slide shows our FGI compared to local divisions in our area, with Williamsburg being on your left in green. As we peel back the layers of this data, we are going to look at the federal graduation indicator rate for specific reporting groups. This slide shows the comparison of our FGI between the city and the county. The green bar represents the Williamsburg FGI of 86.7% compared to the James City County FGI of 91.6% on the right. The red line above is a reminder of the combined WJCC FGI of 91.2%. The next slide takes a closer look, examining the FGI rate for the specific demographic reporting groups of Black, Hispanic, White, economically disadvantaged, English learners, and students with disabilities. It is important to note as we look at data comparing reporting groups throughout the remainder of the presentation that, again, students may appear in more than one reporting group. For example, a student may be included within economically disadvantaged and special education. The green bars in this graph display the 2025 FGI for the identified reporting groups. The number of students in the 2025 cohort for each reporting group is provided under each set of bars, and the actual number graduating on time is noted within the green bar. Our economically disadvantaged group had a 81.6% FGI, with 262 of the 321 students graduating with a diploma within 4 years. The next slide shows 3 years of trend data for some reporting groups of economically disadvantaged, English learners, and students with disabilities. The numbers in the bottom of the bar show the number of students graduating on time out of the total number of that reporting group. For example, we have an FGI of 81.6 for students in the economically disadvantaged group, with 262 out of 321 students graduating on time. This next slide breaks down the same data by locality. The FGI rate for the city is shown in the green bar on the left, and the county is the gray bar on the right. The numbers in the bottom of the bar show the number of students graduating on time out of the total number for that reporting group. For example, our economically disadvantaged students had an FGI of 81.4% in the city, with 35 of 43 students graduating on time, and the county had an FGI of 81.7, with 227 of 278 graduating on time. Now we're going to shift to a new acronym, CCR, or the cohort completion rate. The completion rate is calculated using the FGI plus applied studies diplomas in addition to students earning GEDs and students completing high school within 5 years. These completers were able to complete a traditional diploma track or another program of study that provides a direct pathway to work, post-secondary programs, trades, the military, and/or college. The green bar on the next slide represents WJCC's 2025 cohort completion rate of 96.9%. This includes the city and the county, and for comparison, the Virginia CCR is 93.7%. In the next slide, we see the city CCR of 95.2% in the green bar, and the county CCR of 97% in the gray bar. The red line indicates the WJCC overall CCR of 96.9%. The next slide displays 5 years of cohort completion rates for the city and the county combined. Starting on the left, you can see that the rate was 95.9% in 2021, and in 2025, it's 96.9%. The next slide gives a quick snapshot of WJCC cohort completion rates compared to our like school divisions across Virginia. As a reminder, these divisions are similar in enrollment, demographics, and budget. The WJCC rate of 96.9% is higher than all but one of our school divisions and our like school divisions in Virginia. And this next slide shows the WJCC CCR in comparison with our local school divisions, with WJCC being on your far left.
The next 3 slides provide CCR data for our 3 high schools. For each year, you will see the high school's completion rate first, represented by the gray bar on the left, and then WJCC's rate in the green bar on the right. The total number of students in the cohort for the school is displayed under each year, and the number inside the gray bar represents the number of completers. The Jamestown class of 2025 had 307 students in its cohort. 299 either graduated on time with an advanced or standard diploma, received a GED, received an applied studies, or completed high school in 5 or more years, for a CCR of 97.4%. Next, we have Lafayette High School. The Lafayette class of 2025 had 327 students in its cohort. 316 students either graduated on time with an advanced or standard diploma, received a GED, received an applied studies diploma, or completed high school in 5 or more years, for a CCR of 96.6%. Finally, the War Hill class of 2025 had 351 students in its cohort. 339 students either graduated on time with an advanced or standard diploma, received a GED, received an applied studies diploma, or completed high school in 5 or more years, for a CCR of 96.6%. This next slide summarizes and provides you both the FGI, or the Federal Graduation Index, and the cohort completion rate, or CCR, for the WJCC class of 2025 and for each of our 3 high schools. We are very proud of the accomplishments of our students, and this speaks to the work of our school leaders and teachers who make attendance, student engagement, and instruction a priority, as they do whatever it takes to help each individual student find his or her pathway to post-secondary success.
And Kathy, if I may, I think the middle column, the FGI, is the aspirational column. We want students in the cohort to graduate within 4 years. I think the column on the right does a great job of underscoring the work that goes on in this division to help support students who may not get it done in those 4 years to find their pathway to something after high school. So while we want the number in the middle to be higher, the percentage in the middle to be higher, I think it is something to be proud of and speaks to the work of our staff across all 3 schools and across the division. So thank you for mentioning that, Kathy.
On the next few slides, we'll take a look at data related to college and career readiness as it aligns with the 3E framework, which includes enrollment, employment, and enlistment. As a reminder, this is a component of the state's new school performance and support framework. Jessica Walter, our Director of School Counseling, CTE, and College and Career Readiness, will now share data with you supporting 3Es.
Good evening. Within the 3E readiness framework, the category of enrollment is aimed at post-secondary enrollment and looks at student participation in advanced programming, such as advanced placement, or AP, and dual enrollment. On the slide above, we share 4 different programs that include advanced level programming and enrollment data from the last 3 school years. Here you see dual enrollment course enrollment, which includes courses such as College Composition 1 and 2 and EMT 1 and 2. AP course enrollment, which includes courses such as AP US History or AP Chemistry. Governor School enrollment, which includes all students enrolled in the 2-year Governor School for Science and Technology program, and the Early College Scholars program. The Governor's Early College Scholars Program recognizes high school students who earn both the Governor's Diploma Seal and at least 15 hours of transferable college credit while completing the requirements for an advanced studies diploma. These college credits can be earned through AP, IB, or dual enrollment coursework. The numbers you see on this slide indicate the number of WJCC high school seniors who earned this recognition in the corresponding school year. It is also important to note when looking at this data that while the Governor's School Enrollment and Early College Scholars Program achievement are unique student numbers, both the AP and dual enrollment counts are considered duplicate, meaning students who took more than one course in this area would be included more than one time in the overall count. As seen on the previous slide, AP course enrollment is currently our highest enrollment within advanced programs. AP courses offer high school students the opportunity to complete college-level coursework and potentially earn college credit while still in high school. Here we go deeper into the AP program and are able to see AP course enrollment in green, the number of AP exams taken in blue, and the number of qualifying scores on those AP exams in purple. A qualifying score on an AP exam is considered a 3, 4, or 5. Qualifying scores are indicative of scores that colleges and universities often consider awarding credit for, exempting students from coursework. However, this is not guaranteed. Here we are able to see that not only did WJCC see 27% growth in enrollment in AP courses over these 3 years, but a 65% increase in qualifying scores, allowing more students to start their college experience with credits earned. Finally, shown on this slide is data relating to AP exams taken by students across the school division last year. This data reflects not only students in the class of 2025, but any student who participated in an AP exam during the 24-25 school year. As shared previously, students across all 3 high schools participate in AP courses with the option to participate in an accompanying AP exam. For the 2024-2025 school year, 1,799 AP exams were administered in WJCC. The pie graph on this slide breaks down the number of exams by school. The second E of the 3E Readiness Framework stands for employment. In the area of employment, we look into our CTE programming and opportunities available to students to explore and experience coursework aligned with their future interests and career fields. On the slide, you see 5-year trend data related to WJCC CTE completers and New Horizons CTE enrollment. A CTE completer is a student who has met the requirements for a CTE concentration or a sequence, and all requirements for high school graduation or an improved alternative education program. In the last 5 school years, we have seen 104% growth in CTE completers and 68% growth in enrollment in New Horizons Career and Technical Education Center. Another key component of preparing our students for employment is ensuring they have access to and the opportunity to earn a state-approved, industry-recognized credential. On this slide, you see the number of industry credentials earned by WJCC students over the last 5 school years. Here we see an increase of 28% from the 2020-21 school year to last year. Preparing our students for next steps after high school is also about providing them the opportunity to develop skills necessary for the workplace and learn more from those in the field, allowing students to be exposed to the opportunities available related to their interests. The College and Career Readiness Team, in partnership with local employers, has created opportunities across the division to help students learn more about various careers and start to build skills for the future. Here we see the variety of events and experiences available to students and the total number of years those events have been in place, beginning with Manufacturing and Trades Day, which kicked off 11 years ago, to the reintroduction of Discover Law last year and the launch of Military Careers Day. High schools are not the only place where our students can learn more about career opportunities and hear directly from local experts in the field. All of our elementary and middle schools provide career exploration events to students ranging from career days, career cafes at lunch, and career fairs. These events and experiences not only provide engaging opportunities for our students, but they also highlight the essential partnership with our community, as none of these events would be possible without the support of local business and community members. The final E in the 3E Readiness Framework stands for enlistment. Here we look at opportunities for students interested in enlisting in the military, and more specifically, students who participated in the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Assessment, or what is commonly known as the ASVAB, over the last 3 school years. In previous years, this assessment was provided to students who signed up, providing it to a smaller number of students. Beginning this year, we will now provide the ASVAB to all students in the 11th and 12th grade, and next year transition to all juniors and those seniors who choose to sign up. This will allow students to gain feedback in areas such as verbal, math, science and technical, and spatial skills. It is important to note that these scores will only be reported to the military if the student elects to share them. Now, Dr. Worley will share information related to WJCC's summer school program.
Our 2025 summer school program opened opportunities for continued success for our students, and the next slide highlights a few data points for you. 23 of our students graduated from high school, and 145 students We're able to recover 368 credits. Additionally, we had 387 students earn initial credits in health and PE, government, English 12, and/or economics and personal finance. I know we've covered a lot of significant data, and you may ask, how did we support students and facilitate success throughout our schools? The answer is continued collaboration and teamwork, paired with individualized, timely, and tiered academic support and interventions for our students. Our school leadership teams, our school counselors, graduation coaches, school improvement specialists, teachers, and central office staff all work together to support our schools and students. Our teams are intentional with our work to include ongoing database conversations to refine interventions and student support. Our school teams make tracking every cohort and each individual student a priority. And our schools provide pathways to credit recovery for students who have previously failed courses and tiered support for learning each day. Finally, getting students in school every day is a priority across the division. All of this remarkable work highlighted this evening would not be possible without the dedication of our teachers and administrative teams, all under the leadership of our amazing high school principals who are in attendance this evening. The next few slides will highlight a graduate from the class of 2025. Please welcome first Karen Scott, the interim principal of Jamestown High School, as she highlights a JHS graduate.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Keever. The high school principals are honored to share examples of the incredible work facilitated by our staff over the past school year. Jamestown would like to share David's story in his own words. During my time at Jamestown High School, I truly discovered what it meant to grow as both a student and a musician. I found my years there to be a genuine privilege. The difference between what I knew as a freshman and what I accomplished by the time I graduated is truly immeasurable. At Jamestown, I had the opportunity to focus classes in both vocal and instrumental music, which allowed me to explore my passion for performing and deepen my understanding of music as an art form. Along the way, I gained invaluable experiences and built lasting friendships that continue to shape who I am today. The faculty and staff at Jamestown are deeply passionate about the work and genuinely invested in the success of their students. Their encouragement helped me to build confidence and set ambitious goals for my future. After graduation, I began working towards my associate degree at Virginia Peninsula Community College, with plans to transfer to a four-year university. I've also continued to play and pursue my love of music by performing with the band at Christopher Newport University. Jamestown High School gave me the foundation to follow my passion and continue growing both academically and artistically. And for that, I'm truly grateful. Next, Mr. Townsend will share a success story from Lafayette High School.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Good evening. Last year, Reagan Kerr graduated from Lafayette High School. In preparing for this presentation, I reached out to several of her teachers and asked them to describe Reagan in just a few words. Within moments, the words that came back were dedicated, focused, and caring. Along with those words came a photograph. Reagan in her welding gear, sparks flying, carefully joining two pieces of metal together. After hearing how her teachers and counselors spoke about her, I wanted to learn more. So I reached out with a telephone call. Reagan, being humble and perhaps a little surprised, asked, "Why does the new principal want to talk to me?" I explained that I wanted to better understand how her time at Lafayette shaped her journey and why this place still mattered to her. When I asked what made Lafayette special, Reagan didn't hesitate. She said, "It was the teachers and my friends. They made Lafayette feel like home." Next, I'd like to introduce Ms. Newcomb, principal of War Hill High School.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Keever. I am going to highlight Josiah Carpenter's journey to graduation, which is one beyond courage, resilience, and transformation. I grew up in Alaska in a tough situation, Josiah shared. I came from a very broken family. For a long time, I felt like I was going nowhere. I was lazy, unhealthy, and stuck. But everything changed when I moved to Virginia to live with my aunt and uncle. They took me in when I had nothing and pushed me to get my life together. Starting his senior year at War Hill High School wasn't easy. Because his parents wouldn't release his school records, Josiah had to take 11 classes to meet graduation requirements. This caused him to consider giving up throughout that year. And this challenge grew, and in the spring of his senior year, he actually stopped attending for a short time and was at great risk of not graduating. And while he says it felt impossible, with the relentless encouragement of War Hill teachers and staff, he decided to keep pushing forward and graduated on time with the class of 2025. After graduation, Josiah remembered meeting a Marine Corps recruiter who had visited War Hill earlier in the year. I reached out, took the ASVAB, and before I knew it, I was on my way to boot camp. He said, it was tough, but no tougher than the battles I'd already fought in life, and just like before, I conquered it. Today, Josiah proudly serves in the United States Marine Corps. Having completed boot camp, he's now in an AIT program in North Carolina. War Hill celebrates Josiah Carpenter for his perseverance, growth, and the accomplishment of graduating, which has afforded him the opportunity to serve our country by enlisting. His story is a reminder that strength is not found in how easy the path is, but in how you keep moving forward no matter how hard it gets.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mr. Townsend, and Ms. Newcomb. We realize your examples offer only a small glimpse into the work done in every school. Thank you for your exceptional leadership. As you hear us say each year, graduation rate is a percentage representing a number. Our school teams, as you heard tonight, know each individual name and face connected with the numbers, including their needs, strengths, and goals for the future. They care about every child, and they put in hard work and time to make a difference in the lives of the faces on the slide you see here. So with that, thank you for your time this evening, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Worley. Any questions from board members? Any comments?
I have a few comments.
Okay.
I was trying really hard not to tear up during those. Wondering, those are just 3 examples of some incredible WJCC students that we have. So thank you very much for sharing that. And it's just really heartwarming to know that those students take a piece of WJCC into the future, and that we're putting students out into our community who are successful. And so thank you for sharing that. I did have a few wonderings, and just looking through the presentation, I was very encouraged by what was shared. I noticed that there was clear and noticeable gains with advanced program enrollment, the CTE completers, and enrollment, as well as industry credentials. So that's a huge, step in that trend is noticeable, and it's exciting. And I do not only see it in the presentation, but from just being a parent of high schoolers now, notice it amongst their peers and amongst family feedback. And so that was just encouraging to see that also reflected in the report and the summary. So thank you for sharing that. Some of the wonderings that I had were earlier, the first part that was shared about graduation. There does seem to be somewhat of a decline, noticeable, not, I wouldn't say like necessarily hugely concerning, just looking at the presentation, there does seem to be some decreases and gaps. And I don't want to go through like specifically necessarily, but I was wondering if we could just speak to sort of what's sort of some steps or takeaways in terms of next steps, and in terms of just looking into, at least as a board, I think we can look at budget priorities and just things like staffing or resources, and Yeah, so those were just some things that kind of caught my eye that maybe weren't, all positive, like gaps between state and division where we're a little bit below. I know it's always a goal, and in previous presentations, I feel like I've always felt like, oh, we are above a lot of the state averages. And then there were also some slides I noticed where there were more noticeable gaps in subgroups, like specific groups that need more support. So just those were just sort of some wonderings and noticings that I had, and I was wondering if you could speak to that. Yeah.
I think a couple of us are prepared to provide some context to the best of our ability. I think that we also acknowledge that there are gaps in terms of the various graduation rates. And one of the things I think we say at the outset is tonight we shared with you 3 different rates. And one of our challenges in talking about this presentation as a group, where do we really hang our hat and share? Because I think if you looked at the cohort completion rate, the CCR group, that we fare better than the state, because I think that indicates our work related to, if we can't get you done in 4, how do we help you get over the hurdle in 5? But as I mentioned, our focus is on the 4-year FGI. And so we, I think, are peeling back the layers with respect to the cohort groups and really trying to understand exactly within that cohort what the individual students need to be on track to graduate within those 4 years. So I'm happy to have Kathy answer some of those questions, and then perhaps relative to students with disabilities, Adam may have some insights that he wants to share. I'll also say that this evening, for the first time again, in line with what we've tried to do, presenting data across both of the localities that we serve, we have broken that out. And I think that's an important component for us to continue to talk about as well. So let's start with Kathy and then see if Adam has a different, additional contextual pieces.
Sure. So the 3 acronyms, obviously, it gets a little confusing. I will say in most places, we are at or above the state. I think in comparing to our local school divisions, maybe where you would see that, and also in some of our reporting groups. And Dr. Brown, you can jump in if you want. I know that I think overall we are juggling as a division and as a state the new framework. And so part of going into putting this presentation together, we were waiting. We had one presentation, and then a week before, all the data dropped. So then we updated it again. And we're just putting together how the formula works. But there are things that were included in this year that we did not receive credit for as last year. One of them would be the opportunity for students to earn an LAVC, a locally awarded verified credit. And is there anything I should add to that? We did not, the same amount of students weren't eligible to earn an LAVC, which a lot of our special education students had an opportunity to earn that. It's a replacement credit for an SOL.
Yeah, this was the class of 2025 was the first year that was not afforded emergency LAVCs. So we, again, peeling back the layers and additionally looking at the FGI with the standard and advanced studies diplomas, looking at what students are qualifying for applied studies diplomas and what supports can we continue to provide them. And I think it's important to note that if they are awarded an applied studies diploma, they are also eligible for services and continue to advance towards a standard and advanced studies or GED diploma. So it's kind of peeling back those students who qualify for that.
Bottom line for me, though, is that we're going to continue to work on reaching for 100% of a cohort that starts with us and that walks across the stage with us.
Yes, and I fully believe that. And the wonderings I had was just, if anybody who's listening has those same kind of questions, but I do have full confidence. And thank you for that explanation.
Ms. Henley?
Also, I was just, I like her word, wondering. In the cohort, do we include like students that are transient or move back to another country, or if someone passes away, or if they have that they were supposed to graduate, but due to their special ed qualification, they went to the next year? Are they in this counted as that part of that cohort?
Ms. Walter may be able to help me with this. If they start with us, they're in the cohort, but they're coded. There's lots of codes. So there is a code for a student that leaves the country. So that means they would not be included in our final number. There's a code if a child passes away, so they would not be in our number. I don't know if there's anything.
That's correct. But and Dr. Brown, correct me if I'm wrong, but if a student starts in that cohort and it's a student with disabilities and they just continue because they can and they need to, they still are counted in that cohort.
Okay. All right, thank you. I just never knew.
And I think we also, at the school level, and our school improvement team, graduation coach, through our attendance process, we do encounter some students who just leave us. We don't know that they've enrolled somewhere else. It could be that they've left the area, left the state, left the country. And if we don't have a withdrawal code, they are still counted in that cohort group.
That's what I was wondering.
And so part of the work that's done at the high school level with our principals and the team there is to track every single student. And I will tell you, having been a high school principal, the three people seated behind me do yeoman's work every day on a myriad of issues, and it's really impressive, as is the work that the teams do to try to track every single student.
Mr. Riffle?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kiever, for that. I just want to say thank you for the presentation and to our principals and to the building staff for it takes a lot to kind of get these numbers on a page, and we're thankful for the educators and things you all have. I just have a question about the ASVAB scores. Like, what's the reason for now our students having to take it as 11th and 12th graders? And then just maybe for the public, I kind of understand a bit, but could you clarify that for us?
Sure. We want to give every student an opportunity to take the ASVAB because it counts towards the 3E process relative to enlistment. And I think that our focus on that allows for us to continue to enhance those individual students' opportunity post-grad. So there's an opportunity piece there in terms of sitting for and taking the ASVAB. Similarly, as you'll recall last year during the budgeting process, we had conversation around advanced placement course tests and whether or not the division should fund those. One of my wonderings in looking at the data, as you look at the three different schools and who is registering for and taking the tests, is do we need to continue to consider providing a broader coverage of AP test opportunities for our students, because that allows for those students to potentially earn college credit and then also verify that they've mastered the subject area via the AP exam.
And that would be my next point, was like, it's nice to know that the ASVAB is free to an extent, right, through programming, but AP scores and tests, we have certainly a larger growing population of AP students enrolling. It'd be helpful for us to also score points for them for our accreditation and stuff in that model too. So I know the ASVAB plays a part of the 3Es, but so does AP, and it's important that we kind of balance those things. So I would challenge my colleagues to think about that too.
Sure, I think also from my perspective that taking the AP course is really important. We want students to be challenged in terms of the rigor of the advanced placement course. That is important, that exposure. And we want to encourage them to sit for that exam as well, for two reasons. One, because it helps them understand what a cumulative, really difficult, rigorous final exam is like, and also because he or she may help earn credit if they move on and matriculate to college. The third process of that is that it does potentially afford us some points in the 3E framework.
Sure.
As a division, I mean.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Dr. Cavazos?
I think what's really impressive, aside from all the data and the all tracking, that's got to be a lot of work. It also shows that there's a very comprehensive array of educational opportunities. It really is amazing, the spectrum of learning and educational programs. And if you look at the numbers, assuming they're exclusive, there's 2,103 industrial credentials, and there's 2,807 AP enrollment. I mean, that's two big different groups of students probably, and it's really impressive that they've all been covered. They're all taken care of, and they're all given the opportunity to really achieve and do what one of your primary goals is, to be prepared to graduate and move on and do something with their lives. That's very important. Congratulations. Thank you.
I have question. I know you've talked a lot of times about moving forward, really wanting to have students have an actionable plan post-graduation. How
Sure.
do we plan to track those actionable plans, and how do we plan to present them in the future?
I don't think we have time tonight to go into that, and frankly, it's one of those action steps that we'll need to build out in terms of the phased implementation. I think we do have currently an academic career planning process. I think that internally we need to begin to flesh out how do we put even more specific parameters around that. So it would be my hope in the next 6 to 8 months to deliver a framework for how we ensure that there's that planning in place. We're not ready yet.
Okay. And even for now, for all the data that we do have, do we know how many, what percentage of students did go on to a 2 or 4 year degree program versus do we know anything about where they all went?
Yes, we collect that data at the end of the school year from students on what their intended plan is. We get that in different ways. Directly from them, but it's confirmed by, we sent your final transcript to this location, we sent your final transcript to this 2-year school, or whatever the case may be. I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but that is something we can get you.
Okay.
It is, I think it's important, self-reported is
Sure.
part of it.
Sure, but to me, the distinction is you could graduate 900 kids with the bare minimum requirement to graduate, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're moving on to
Prepared.
something successful.
Sure. That's right.
Or you could say 98% of our students were accepted into a college, whether or not they went or not is irrelevant. So that's a big difference. That's
I think that's a fair assessment, and we'd like to be able to share with you what that data is. I think there are also different clearinghouse models that some school divisions utilize to help measure students who enroll in school, a 2 or 4 year school, and remain in that school. So that might be something that we continue to look at as a school division moving forward.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Because I was maybe along those lines, because I was curious how Newport News and Hampton had they were like 99 point something. They were pretty high.
Yes.
On their completers, and so how they were able to achieve that, because I would imagine those might be a slightly more challenging school divisions in certain ways, and much larger, and having that high of a rate. Which you don't work there, so you might not know.
I'm not able to comment on the strategies that are utilized in that division, but I will say that we as an organization do reach out to our counterparts, whether it's regionally or across the Commonwealth, and try to gain insights into how best to support the individual students that we have on our course roles. And I think each school division, from my perspective, has a unique way of going about and doing that, and I happen to think the one that we use is really strong. Can get better, but really strong.
I was going to say, just because I see Mr. Townsend sitting here, and I did a school visit at Lafayette, and he had a board up already tracking what students are thinking about doing, and there was a lot of kids, college, and then the trades and military, and I was happy. There was very few that did not know what they were interested in, but to see that visually, and to know that kids already at this 3-4 months into school have a plan and they know what they're going to, that was really a nice way to start tracking early.
To me, it speaks to that idea of being student-centered,
Yes.
and to really also be strategic in the supports that we provide students.
Yes.
All right, any other questions or comments before we move on? All right, thank you, Dr. Worley and Ms. Walter. Thank you.
Also, a huge thanks to the 3 principals that joined us this evening.
They're behind me. I can't.
We're grateful for your leadership in our schools.
Thank you for coming tonight and for your presentations as well. All right, we will go to item 5.04, fiscal year 2027 operating budget overview.
Yes, ma'am. As we've talked about with the revised joint agreement and looking at planning for the upcoming fiscal year, we have shared that we intend to engage the board in conversation leading up to the release of the superintendent's proposed budget, which happens on February 3rd. So let's timeline this out. Tonight we need to have a conversation around what are we thinking as an organization in terms of some of those big key items, and get some perspective from the school board around how can we best position this group to have conversations when we get together in January on the 6th, on the 13th, and on the 20th for our budget work sessions. Because those 3 budget work sessions really inform the final product that I will attempt to deliver on February 3rd. Right after that presentation on February 3rd is an opportunity to make a similar presentation at the joint meeting with both the City Council and the Board of Supervisors. So this evening we're going to lay out for you some of those things that we think are in your thought process in terms of priorities, but really want to engage some conversation around what more might you need information on, or should we be prepared to talk about in January. Renee?
Thank you, Dr. Keever. Good evening again. This presentation provides an overview of preliminary considerations for the development of the fiscal year 27 budget. This includes revenue outlooks, compensation updates, staffing needs, and other considerations that will shape the superintendent's proposed budget. As part of the new agreement for the joint operations of the school division, local contributions are increasing by $6 million. State revenue remains pending as we await the release of the state budget later this week.
And we should also say that the release of the Governor Youngkin's budget will occur tomorrow, I believe. There's actually a series of meetings for school divisions and school division leaders to hear about the impact on education, but I'm not convinced that we'll necessarily have a very specific picture until we get into January and February. So we'll be building this off of some assumptions that come out tomorrow and then start to unfold as the legislative session starts to take place in January. Sorry, Renee.
With respect to staffing, this budget cycle reflects several categories of requests. We are assessing which positions should be carried forward into the fiscal 27 budget proposal. First, there are FTE requests that were included in the fiscal 26 proposal but ultimately not funded. The school-based ones included staffing for the Restorative Center to expand program offerings, K-2 gifted resource teachers, special education aides, and elementary teacher assistants for behavior support. Central support positions included positions in finance, human resources, and operations. Beyond the unfunded FTEs, the items here represent additional requests received last year that were not included in the fiscal year 26 proposal. These included additional FTEs, stipend requests, and contractual day changes for various positions. We are also beginning to look at pre-K staffing needs associated with the center's opening in fiscal year 28 to determine whether any positions should be included in the fiscal 27 budget to support that future expansion.
Part of our rationale on this front is we know that there will be a need for additional positions, and is there a way for us to bring on a portion of some of those positions over the course of 2 fiscal years so as not to potentially overburden the finances in fiscal year 28. And we'll talk more about that, I think, as we get into the planning process, but that's on our mind.
Compensation remains one of the most significant components of the budget. During the 24-25 school year, the division engaged Bolton Rewards to conduct a comprehensive compensation study, and we continue to move through the multi-year implementation of the recommendations. This slide is a reminder of the projected costs provided by Bolton last year. Please note that the cost estimates shown exclude benefits and assume full implementation within a single year. During the fiscal year 26 budget, we implemented a portion of the recommendations from the compensation study. We are estimating the remaining cost to be $6.8 million. Fiscal year 26 was the first year of implementation of a phased approach to implement the recommendations of the study. Actions included targeted increases above 3% for select teacher lanes, implementation of a unified pay scale, and equity adjustments for certain support scale grades. teacher compensation, step 0 now aligns with recommendations from the study, and we ensured that each step includes a minimum progression of 0.5%. Additional increases beyond the general 3% were targeted to steps that were significantly below market. These targeted adjustments help us address both recruitment and retention challenges. Compensation will continue to be a focus during this budget cycle as we continue to work on our competitiveness for attracting and retaining staff. For reference, each 1% in salary increase costs approximately $1.3 million, and this cost does include the associated benefits. Completing years 2 and 3 of the compensation study is estimated at $6.8 million. And we also continue to monitor teacher pay rankings relative to surrounding divisions to remain competitive in recruitment and retention. This chart shows how our teacher pay ranking changed after our year 1 implementation this year among Newport News, Hampton, York, Gloucester, and New Kent. On the bachelor's scale, step 5, we increased from 4th to 3rd, and on the master's scale, we increased at all levels except steps 20 and 25. Potential year 2 actions include improving step progression on the teacher scale, refining job title structures within the unified scale, and making targeted adjustments in select unified scale grades. We also plan to address gaps in stipends and supplemental pay as part of maintaining a market-responsive system. Stipends play a crucial role in compensating employees for additional responsibilities. We are proposing adjustments across the board to remain competitive and better recognize workload. Last fiscal year, 421 employees received academic stipends and 210 received athletic stipends. The estimated cost increase is $380,000. To meet growing student needs, we are proposing to increase related services positions, SLPs, OTs, PTs, psychologists, and social workers, from 7 hours per day to 8 hours. This affects 48 FTEs with an estimated cost of $640,000. These positions are essential for meeting mandated services and supporting student well-being. We have several positions currently funded through various grants that we anticipate possibly moving into the operating budget. There are positions that are partially funded by Title I, which saw a decline in funding this year, and Title II, which had a delay in funding being released this year. All-in funds have been supporting one full-time position, and that funding expires at the end of this fiscal year. Lastly, Title VI-B has remained essentially level funded for many years, yet our salary and benefit costs increase each year, so the grant cannot continue sustaining the same number of positions. We started transitioning positions out of this grant during the fiscal 20-year budget. A total of 6.05 FTEs may need to transition to the operating fund at an estimated cost of $600,000 to avoid losing essential support. Turning to healthcare costs, because we are only 2.5 months into the current plan year under our new healthcare structure, the data we have today should be viewed as illustrative. We expect to bring more complete information to the board during the January budget work sessions. This slide demonstrates the potential impact of a 15% rate increase under different cost-sharing scenarios between employees and WJCC. For example, if WJCC were to absorb 60% of a 15% increase, the budget would need to increase by approximately $2.2 million. And if the division were to absorb 70%, the increase would be about $2.5 million. As a reminder, not all eligible employees participate in our healthcare program. Currently, 1,280 employees are enrolled out of 1,973 eligible employees.
There's been a significant amount of talk about bringing on a JROTC unit, and to that end, we wanted to get feedback from our students around interest in that programming. There were approximately 919 students who indicated an interest in participating in JROTC programming in grades 6 through 11. We think that's a terrific number. If you look at 33% of the 100, you might think, well, that's only 33%, but that is almost 1,000 of our students who said they would have an interest in that programming if we were to offer it. On the right-hand side of the slide, we just wanted to remind you of some of the estimated costs for programming with JROTC. You'll probably remember that cost share, or the cost share model, is where you split the cost with the branch of service, and the cadet option is where the locality bears the full expense. In addition, there's been significant talk amongst the community members and the board around lacrosse. We continue to push for the turfing of Cooley Field, which would allow for us to have a competition venue as well as some additional physical education space and play space outside of lacrosse, but wanted to remind the board that the estimate for initial year investment in lacrosse is about $225,000 with an ongoing cost of $70,000 after year one. Neither of those two estimates take into consideration potential transportation costs.
In addition to staffing and compensation, we face increases in operational areas as well. Grounds and stormwater services provided by James City County are expected to increase by $580,000. The county has historically covered routine stormwater maintenance for our schools. Beginning in fiscal year 27, the county will begin invoicing the division for all stormwater and grounds-related maintenance costs to ensure full and accurate cost accounting. The pre-K centers are scheduled to be substantially complete in January of 2027, so we need to plan for utility costs for those buildings for half a year. That estimated cost is $200,000.
As we go to these next slides, these summary slides, I don't want people to get too high or too low with respect to temperature. We want to put these data points in front of you as we continue the conversation. Go ahead, Renee.
These summaries consolidate the expenditure categories we've reviewed today. The estimated costs for items discussed today related to compensation, benefits, and positions range from $11.6 million to $13 million. Please note that this total does not include any general salary increase for staff, which costs roughly $1.3 million per 1%. The estimated cost for non-compensation related items ranges from $4.3 million to $4.6 million. Please note that one item on this list that we have not discussed today is department budget requests that were submitted above the current year funding level, which totals $3.2 million. We are in the early stages of reviewing those requests to determine which ones to bring forward. In total, the estimated cost of everything presented today ranges from $15.3 million to $17 million. Again, it is important to note that this total does not include an amount for a general salary increase for all staff, only the estimated cost for year 2 of the compensation study. We will continue refining cost estimates and prioritizing requests. We welcome your questions and guidance as we move forward toward developing a proposed budget for fiscal year 2027.
So to end with where we began, there's a fairly quick turnaround for us in terms of the next time we get together to talk about budget. The budget work session is on January the 6th. So we have a couple days this week, then we're at the winter holiday, and then we come back and we start our budget work session process. We also have the 13th, which is a standalone budget work session, and then a budget work session on the 20th in advance of the meeting. One of the things, or some of the things that Renee and I would like to hear from the board are those areas where are there things that you want to bring to the forefront, to have us prepared to talk about on the 6th, the 13th, or the 20th? And in general, have we initially captured the right big ticket items that are on the minds of board members?
Thank you, Dr. Keever. So once again, this is, intended to be a board discussion about what we've just heard. We all have different, some board members have different pet projects and different priorities, so this is the time to begin that. We all experiencing a little bit of sticker shock, and that's where operating.
I guess I have one question regarding the pre-K centers, and you're discussing bringing in the potential of needing more employees.
Yes, sir.
Do we not have an approximate guesstimate number of how many employees? Because I'm assuming those individuals who are currently with the pre-K children, students, are going to be moving over to our pre-K centers.
That's right.
So how many additional employees besides those do you estimate we're going to need?
Before we give you that number, let me tell you what, just in general, we're going to be servicing potentially additional 100 plus students. So in that realm, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 teachers, additional instructional assistants, the need for additional clerical support. We do have clerical support now, but we remember that right now we're utilizing 5 campuses in a non-central model, so that there's additional clerical support there. There's also the need for additional custodial support and additional school security officer for each building. So as an example, and as we think about fiscal 27, would it be appropriate for us to bring on the 2 security officers and assign them to Norge and Clara Bird Baker during the construction process, and then matriculate over to the North Campus and South Campus when those buildings open? So those are some of the kinds of things that we're thinking about with respect to parsing out the staffing over the course of 2 fiscal years. Renee, I'm pretty close on the numbers, I think.
You are.
Okay. So it probably somewhere in the neighborhood between 12 and 17 additional staff. You gonna blow me out of the water?
I have about 40 on the list.
Right.
It includes
Bus drivers
some
and bus aides.
drivers and aides, speech language pathologists, OTs, PTs, psychologists, social worker.
In addition to what we currently have.
Yes,
That's right.
Okay, so before I
Yeah, go ahead.
maybe more of a discussion, can we talk about the healthcare fund aspect before we kind of talk about like the sticker price stuff and getting to the summaries? I think this is important to kind of, we've set aside some funds and we've kind of discussed it once, and then we kind of, that's how funds work.
Sure, we have attempted to set aside healthcare reserve funds. We've asked for the money that was left over at the end of fiscal year 25 to be earmarked for healthcare reserve and to be earmarked for textbook reserve. Board took action on that. That request has gone to both the county and city, where they will make determinations on reappropriation. That has not occurred as of yet, so that piece is hanging right there right now. I think the other component for us is what is the final dollar amount as we formally exit the local choice healthcare plan. I don't believe that we have received the final numbers from what we call as TLC and what it may cost us to be finished with that plan. So as we were talking about healthcare, we took our number and decided, just for the purposes of putting a number out there in terms of a placeholder, if we looked at a 10% increase or a 15% increase over our current, what would that number be?
So that was sort of using the TLC number.
That was using our current. Budgeted amount for healthcare. So for fiscal 26, we took something where 25 million or 26 million, and then we applied a 10% to 15% slide on it.
Based off on what? Just historic?
The current enrollment and the cost of the.
Okay, so the insurance company has not come and said we're going to charge you 15% more.
No.
Okay.
They have not.
That's happened in the past too.
That has happened in the past. And part of our challenge in this process is that we are 2.5 months into a new plan with a new company. We know that there is a potential that we will owe something to the local choice as that plan year formally closes out, and we are anxiously awaiting what that number is as we continue to plan forward for the next round of healthcare.
Okay, so we have officially crossed over to the new.
October 1st was October 1st was the first day of our new plan and new plan year.
Okay.
I'm glad I asked my question. Thank you.
Well, I would have asked mine eventually.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to think about it, and I have nothing else to say yet. So,
Ms. Hunley?
So first of all, I looked down and I was supposed to read a disclosure statement. So before I make my comments, I think I better do that. And I'll definitely be looking for that next time as well. So as a member of the School Board of Williamsburg, James City County, I acknowledge that I may have an interest in the FY27 school budget because my husband is an employee of the WJCC schools. However, I believe that I am able to participate in the consideration of and vote on the budget fairly, objectively, and in public interest. And so for me, definitely number one is compensation. And as we have gone around as school board members and talked to principals and other administration, there is a need for, again, if we can start looking at getting more support for discipline,
You're talking about behavioral support?
yeah, behavioral
Okay.
support.
Sure.
And for some of our teachers that are in special ed, just needing more bodies, additional TAs to help. So those are my two top things at this point.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'll just piggyback off of that. My priorities as well are the compensation piece and making sure we can try to implement as much of that compensation study as possible, given all the other things that need to be balanced within the budget and the needs. Other things that rise to the top that I wanted to highlight are supports, particularly when we were looking at the slides about the positions that we were not able to fund in FY26, the FTEs. Within those particularly, if we could make sure that we prioritize the special education staffing. And we have seen in our school visits, I know we made a significant increase in LEAP teachers, and particularly I think within schools we saw at several schools how experienced teachers were then put into or a LEAP position, and how that has really been beneficial in supporting all the students, not just necessarily the students that need that, the ML students that have particularly need for LEAP support, but in general, all of the students in the classroom are benefiting from that additional expertise and that additional professional. So I can only see that being the case with the special education. And it was unfortunate that we had to, or we did not meet those sort of, when they were first presented to us, they were presented as necessary and needed and essential. And so that, I just want to emphasize that I'd love to see those positions prioritized. And then also just slide 13 did stand out to me. I do think we've been hearing a lot about the need for the related services and the fact that we often have to outsource or pay even more for meeting the sort of federally mandated needs of our students. So those are things I feel like, just from a legal but also just overall moral responsible standpoint, like that stood out to me as well. So those were some of the thoughts that I had.
Thank you.
At the last joint meeting, you made some mention about the fact that we maybe not taking care of being able to take advantage of grants because we didn't have a grant writer. So do we need a grant writer?
There may be some wisdom in looking at looking for grants. One of the challenges I think sometimes we have with grants is they come to an end and aren't. You get the benefit of the resource for a particular period of time, and then you need to take the next step and bring that on into the operating budget. So we may need to look at somebody who can help us support grant writing. I also know that perhaps the city is interested in looking at and exploring some grants. There may be an opportunity for us to share that. So if you were to ask me right now, will we bring forward an FTE for a grant writer? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, the Board of Supervisors seem to be interested in your response, so I was just, maybe.
They did. That's all I'm saying. Okay, yes, sir.
Ms. Donner, do you have any thoughts?
Two of my thoughts have already been great, so thank you on both the healthcare and the grant writer. I think so. I feel strongly that we are very good stewards of our resources, as our CFO has shown us, and that we keep returning millions of dollars back to our funding partners. And I think it's really, by being good stewards of our resources, we get punished in some ways, and like that money isn't, it goes back into our CIP, which is helpful when we're building large buildings, but something like the healthcare fund that we want to do, as well as the textbook fund, it's kind of, to me, it's a little bit of a circular question. If we're giving you $6 million back, but we then need another, I forgot what the number is, like $2+ million to be able to continue to fund our healthcare, to me, it would make sense of just let us keep those additional funds. Same thing with the textbook. If we need to buy textbooks, we're going to come back to ask for the money. If things are increasing in cost, we're going to come back to you to ask for that money. So I think us being able to, as we've done the joint contract, which I think is really helpful, and that at least we know what we're getting from a baseline perspective. I think our next step is to, as you're working on, having the conversation and negotiation around appropriations at the end of the year, and getting very clear on what we can do with those funds. And like some years, maybe the CIP is the right answer, but in this stage, as we are trying to build up our healthcare fund and being self-insured and being fiscally responsible from that perspective, and for the perspective of our teachers and faculty, I think that's a piece we need to continue to push on. I also think, as we always do, is like tying these additional requests to what is our Elevate to 28.
There you go. Thank
and
you.
Our 5 strategic priorities.
Priorities. Yes, ma'am.
Don't ask me to list them. No, I know them. They're not up anymore. You moved the cheat sheet.
Well, that was the wrong cheat sheet. So
I know that was the old one.
We can't have the old information up.
But I think, right, as we're looking at those priorities and what are the things that we need to get us there, and while there are lots of lovely projects on here that are nice to haves, I still, when I'm looking at this, there's a lot of still need to haves, and how do we parse those in there? Needs to haves and strengthening what we already have, like when we talk about the stipends, particularly for our theater and music departments that are giving so much, and we're already kind of shortchanging them there. I shouldn't say that, but how there's still an opportunity for us to strengthen our commitment to them. How are we thinking about the funds from those perspectives? And I would say my last thing, I am in favor of a grant writer, because a grant writer can write themselves into the grant sometimes. And so that's, one way to fund them. And I don't know if that works the same in public, but there are ways to, the grant writer should more than pay for themselves. And are there things that are more fringe or more experimentation types of things that we can try to write for the grant, so that we're not writing major positions into grants, but things that we want to experiment with that might allow us to see if we can get traction. It's a place that we want to do additional investment in.
Any other comments? Mike, did you want to weigh in at all, or do you have any thoughts?
No, I'm fine. I just had that one question before, so.
You guys aren't discussing with each other, but that's okay. Mr. Ripple.
I agree with my colleagues on some of their points. I think when it comes to the positions, I would be a little bit, $4 million is pretty expensive for an initial ask in 1 year when you don't know what the state's going to do in this regard. It's important for us to know that those are essential jobs. I mean, there's 26 of them that were needed. That and then that was a quick math. It was $3 million, but now it's $4 million with the additional for the transitions from grants. So I've always been in the aspect of half of those positions coming to fruition in this budget cycle, because I think you can have positions, but then you have to fill it with water, right? Like it has to have someone that warms the seat and does the job, and so it's kind of tough. And I know education is not the wonderfulest of place to go recruit for these jobs, or they're not. Everyone else is fighting for the same thing. So I just want to be good stewards of our money, as we've discussed, and I think we've taken some pretty savvy ways to go about this before. But the compensation study is something we can't slow down. I think as you think about the end of that study, that's when you can think about the 1% again, right? Like adding compensation to the study is essentially what the state's going to be doing. We know they've been doing for years, which is you pay for half, and which is it kind of came on the wash for us last year. That's what I was saying. So it didn't really like it. The compensation did a lot of work that had heavy lifting to kind of prepare us to keep moving forward. And the faster we get that done, the faster we can move into that 1.3 million changing to something else, because you've finally risen to the tide of where everyone else is. That's important for me. So I won't be backing down on that compensation study. Why did we do it if we're not going to commit to completing it? And I'm interested to see how the healthcare turns out. I think it's a big role, especially with the federal tides and things changing with those, and it's going to be a lot for our states and local governments to take on. Like James City County and Williamsburg will have the same conversation themselves, and I always listen to that part of their budget because everyone kind of deals with the same Virginia systems that we're kind of forced to have. So that's all I have to say. I think generally, it's tough to see the sticker, but I think there's a realistic part of what we find a way, and I think we've navigated it well in the past. So thank you, Dr. Kiever.
Yeah, there's some insinuation that perhaps we may not need all the fringe things, the nice to haves. But if you look at the price of JROTC, it actually will go down. And if you look at the price of lacrosse, it will actually go down. Thank you.
I feel like it does go with KPI though. It does with student success, right? Like if we have to tie it to something, I believe in those things, and that's why they're on the sheet. I think most members want to see this number produce, and so I'm happy to kind of look forward through it. I just, I don't know exactly what group wants to pick us up to do the half of the share costs for cadet programs. Like, I don't think James City County and Williamsburg feel as if they want to pay $400,000 to get something like that started. It sounds nice and great, but it's a lot for a locality to pick up when you can. That's 4 FTEs. You know what I mean? That's it's just the other part we think about here. So, I want to see what it looks like in March. Is what I'm saying. It's tough to, sit here now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that part of the reason we wanted to bring this conversation today is to set us up for dialogue in January. And so I'm hearing that we need to do some work on our end around grant writing and what that might look like. I heard that from a couple folks, and we'll begin to explore that. It sounds also like there are kind of a return to some of those positions that we talked about during last year's budgeting process that we had in and that the board approved, and ultimately we needed to pull out when we recognized the funding wasn't going to be there, refining what those positions are and how they directly impact classroom instruction or supportive teachers or climate and culture within the building. So we'll begin to bring some of those things to the forefront in our conversations into the new year. Is there anything that I'm missing within that?
Oh, Mr. Fulca.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I meant to mention, Mike asked a question previously, Mr. Hosang asked about the pre-K kind of thing, the same thing we kind of had the utilities conversation. Like, sure. Where is our RFP for the solar and stuff? I think this is something to consider as we move into, like, that is potentially something we could have as in our pocket as we move through this budget cycle. Is there... I know we had it at one point in our agenda and then it shifted. I just want to. It's
on for tonight. The solar's on tonight for approval. Yes, sir. I will say though that we're probably looking at about 9 to 12 months before we have panels on buildings. So then you're looking at another period of time before you start to see the savings accrue. But it is a move that we would recommend that we make in order to experience those savings down the road.
Sure.
I'll throw out the last comment that I'm sure is unpopular, but is there any, is there anything we're doing now that we would actually prioritize one of these unfunded things over something we're already doing? Is there any, and I don't know, we talked about maybe using electronics less, or I'm just throwing that out there.
Sure.
Are there things we're doing now that we don't need to be doing to the extent we're doing them, and have we done this will be your work going forward, have you all, and moving forward, you'll have to do a scrub of what we're already spending, because it's not limitless funds, right? Even if the county and the city wrote us blank checks, there is only so much that they have. So, yeah, that's something just to also bear in mind. We're comparing new things to new things and trying to prioritize, but don't forget to look at old things also continually. So,
It's a fair point. Thank you.
all right, any other comments or questions before we move on? Thank you, Ms. Ewing.
Thank you.
The next thing says school board self-evaluation, but I believe that will, did you want to say something?
I'll just say something. So per our SOP, we do a school board evaluation. So we announced it at a prior meeting. The school board has completed it, and it is in executive content. We will discuss that at an upcoming retreat in the first quarter.
Thank you, Ms.
Can I
Donner.
just,
Go ahead.
just one, just looking at one, on section 7, the total comes up to 6 instead of 7. And so I know we're missing.
Okay, thank you. I
Yeah,
will go back and make
yeah,
the correction.
just look at that one. Thank you.
Ms. Donner, thank you for taking
Yes,
that task on and compiling that data. I know that's tedious work, and we appreciate it. All right, we will move on to some action items. Item 6.01, approval of personnel actions. Can I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve personnel actions as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hunley.
Mr. Riffle,
Aye.
Ms. Chen,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner,
Aye.
Mr. Hosang,
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye. Item 6.02, approval of minutes from the regular meeting on November 18th, 2025.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the regular meeting on 11/18/25.
Thank you, Ms. Hunley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hosang.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mr. Riffle,
Aye.
Ms. Chen,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner,
Aye.
Mr. Hosang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye. Item 6.03, approval of minutes from the joint meeting on December 5th, 2025. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the joint meeting on 12/5/25.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Is there a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle.
Ms. Chen,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner,
Aye.
Mr. Hosang,
Abstain.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mr. Riffle,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye. Item 6.04, approval of the FY 27 through 36 superintendent's proposed capital improvement plan. Can I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the fiscal year 27 through 36 superintendent's proposed capital improvement plan.
Thank you, Ms. Hunley. Is there a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mr. Riffle,
Aye.
Ms. Chen,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner,
Aye.
Mr. Hosang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
And last but not least, this might be one Mr. Riffle wants to make a motion on. Can I have a motion for approval to award the contract for request for proposal for solar power purchase agreement?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the award of contract for request for proposal to number 20250927 solar power purchase agreement with Dominion Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Is there a second?
A second.
Ooh, I'm going to give it to Ms. Chen.
Mr. Riffle,
Aye.
Ms. Chen,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner,
Aye.
Mr. Hosang,
No.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
All right. We are at board member comments. Who would like to go first? I'll take volunteers this time.
I will go first. Madam Chair, I just want to, I guess, thank you for your leadership, for everything that you've done for the past 2 years. I started making a list, and I came up, I guess, with my top 3 things that I'm going to say that probably no one should have to go through. One of them, but you had to go through 3 of them. First you had 4 brand new board members that you started with the chair. So I mean, 4 out of 7. I mean, that's a clear majority. So your leadership in guiding the 4 of us and how to act, how to run the board. I mean, it was great, and so I appreciate that. The second issue is going through a superintendent search, which is never easy. And I mean, it took us a lot of hours to go through this issue, and you led us through it greatly, and I appreciate that. And then leading us through the potential school split, where we are a joint school system, and we, for lack of a better way of putting it, we don't have a lot of authority. At least we didn't before in the agreement. And so we were dependent on 2 other entities, and they were the ones that were sort of holding us hostage. And you held us through that. You got us through that. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for your leadership. Looking back at the previous board, looking at the board members, and with all due respect to the 6 of the remaining board members, we couldn't have had a better board chair than you, and there was no one else that could have led us through that, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Hosang. I appreciate that. Where would you like to go next?
Well, glad you asked, Madam Chair. Thank you. It's really been an honor to work with you. You have represented your district, your position, and yourself with integrity, grace, and purpose. Your leadership, compassion, and deep understanding of what our division has needed to succeed will leave an impact for generations to come. I don't want to say these things, it's like not true, but I think you might be possibly the most consequential chair this board's had in its modern era. I think many people who spoke in meetings before have said this, like that you have, as Mr. Hosang said, like dealt with some pretty tough things as a leader. And under your leadership, which I won't name myself, Mr. Hosang, as we've rebuilt public trust, we've clarified accountability and responsibility, we've adopted a new strategic plan, we've introduced new reading curriculum, we targeted compensation, we updated our math curriculum, we broke ground on pre-K facilities. Like these are the largest. And we started redistricting. We had a fun presentation on that today. These are just the highlights. These are just the stuff that like we want to like put in press releases and stuff. But like there's countless days and hours you put into this organization, and we could never repay you, and we don't pay you enough. 2 years ago, you met with me, and I asked you a simple question: how I best could serve the board. And you told me to read the strategic goals, which clearly we've changed, but the other part was to meet my colleagues. I took that advice to heart, and as chair, you facilitated thoughtful discussions that really helped that dynamic go well. You invited our perspectives and consistently made space for every voice. You never made me feel or like I didn't belong or any of the colleagues I had didn't belong. You never judged me. You gave me meaningful advice and important consideration. You understood my passions and where it lied, and you helped guide that passion into meaningful dialogue and productive discourse to our community, and I'm proud to have witnessed like that type of work within government. Above all else, Sarah, you are kind. I saw this most clearly during a meeting we had about the kindness squad at Laurel Lane in remembrance of Josh. You were visibly moved, just as I was and many of my colleagues, and in that moment I saw your heart, I saw your strength, I saw your resolve, and I saw you as a mother, which, you joke around as me, my mom a lot, so. I watched you grow from a board member when I was watching school boards across my time in local government to an exceptional chair as I got to witness and serve with you. Our story continues, but it does so because you've set up a foundation that it's easy to build off of, and that's not something easy to say as any local government could do. Thank you for your leadership, thank you for your kindness, and thank you for getting us here.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate that.
I will go next. We'll take a deep breath. So this is difficult because when I think about being on the school board and I envisioned what our school board would be like, I always envisioned you at this table with us. So this was difficult, and I'm sad. Sarah, you are my friend, and we met many, many years ago when you first moved to Williamsburg. And this was before I think either of us were even thinking about school board, because we were just trying to keep our little children. I had two little ones, you had two, and then later you had another. We were just trying to, get up, get our kids ready. And we met I just think that God works in miraculous ways. And we met at my neighbor's Bible study. She was just having a gathering. And I think and I tell that story, and I know that has nothing to do with how amazing you are as a chair and as a board member and all the service you do. But I wanted to just start with that small story. I think that's just very indicative of Williamsburg and how we're connected and how we are neighbors, right? And we love our neighbors. And so, even though from that first meeting and those first few moments where we met, and life kind of took us in different places, but again, I think that is just Williamsburg, where now we find ourselves serving together on school board, sharing stories about being parents in WJCC, raising kids, putting kids on the bus, right? All of this, right? Wearing our parent hat, wearing our school board hat, wearing both hats at the same time. So I appreciate all of that. And I think that there is, I just feel like when God closes doors, new ones open. And I know that there'll be many, many amazing opportunities that you will serve in our community, and you will continue to be present. And so that's just sort of generally some thoughts that I had. But when it comes to school board, I don't want to repeat what's already been said, but I cannot reiterate, and I will highlight and put +1s on everything that has already been said about your accomplishments and your leadership. I know for a fact that over the last 2 years as our chair, and I'm sure even previous to that, as soon as you stepped on as a school board, you've probably not gone a single day where you haven't thought about, talked about, mulled over, the students that we serve, the school division. And so I am very grateful for that. And I think that you're definitely the right person to lead us at the right time. And you've kept us united. Your superpower, which is a superpower that not many people possess, is the ability to make us feel like we all belong at this table, to make us feel like we have a voice that matters, to keep us united. And you kept us united and unanimous on a lot of really difficult conversations that we had to have. You're always encouraging us, talk to each other, talk to me. You reach out individually, but you really do. I really can't think of anyone else that does that as well as you on this board with the unity piece. And so, with the hiring of the superintendent, the joint negotiations, I just don't think that people in this community realize how much you put into making that happen for us. And so that is something I have been telling so many people, and I will continue to do in our community, that it is because of your leadership. So in Chinese, when we say goodbye to somebody, we don't really have a word for goodbye, like forever kind of farewell. We say 再见, which means I will see you again very soon. So I will leave you with that parting thought, and just say thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. That was very nice.
I want to go last.
You want to go last? Well, you guys can arm wrestle that.
Yeah.
Kim, do you want to?
Sure. We kind of,
Yeah.
we kind of need you to go next, because then he needs to go, then I need to
there's a
go,
plan.
then she needs to go.
Oh.
Oh, where you going?
No, we,
They have
in
a plan,
order, we have something
apparently.
that we have to do procedurally, so it'd
Oh,
be
you have
helpful
something
if
to
you
do,
could go.
We got something to do too.
What do you gotta do?
Don't you worry about it.
Dr. Kier, would you, not to jump here. Oh.
I'm so confused right now.
Madam Chair, on behalf.
We'll just let him go last.
On behalf of administration, I want to share a quote with you and thank you for your leadership. And the quote's from Sandra Day O'Connor, and I think it's particularly appropriate. The ever-present understanding that you are part of something bigger than yourself, and that you and your efforts are paving the way for those who will follow, makes life of public service worth the bumps along the way. A single generation of public service servants cannot bridge all the gaps of inequality and injustice, nor span the chasms of our nation's critical needs. But if we focus our energies on sharing ideas and finding solutions and using what is right with America to remedy what is wrong with it, we can make a difference. Our nation needs bridges, and bridges are built by people like you. And they're built by people who dedicate themselves to the future. We are indebted to you for your leadership. We will miss you, and we are incredibly thankful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Kiever.
Okay, he's back.
Everyone's back.
It's a check.
It's hard to
Who's
coordinate
next?
when you can't talk with more
Yeah.
than one person at a time.
So is he going last?
No, yes, he is.
Okay.
So I'm going, then you go.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So, so Sarah, on behalf of the board, we always have a couple of traditions. So I am going to give you the first tradition. Mrs. Hunley will give you the second tradition.
Okay.
So the first tradition is we always give our outgoing chair a gavel.
Oh, nice.
And the gavel says Sarah G. Ortego, School Board Chair, WJCC Public Schools 2024 and 2025. And this just symbolizes all of the work that all of our colleagues have already talked about that you've done.
Oh, thank you.
And I would just love to say as board chairs, do you realize she's never missed a meeting as chair? Which I am so grateful for as vice chair. But seriously, when you think about someone's character, and I'll probably end up crying during this, is like, Sarah, even in this meeting, Sarah's conduct and the way she engaged in the meeting with the content was as an engaged person, like she was going to sit at this table forever. And the night after the election, we had an agenda meeting. She showed up there fully engaged, fully helping us to get through the next 2 board meetings. She has gone to all of the different plays and school visits, helping us figure out what our policy agenda is going to be for next year. Volunteering to help with the board self-evaluation. And I think that's just such a testament to who she is as a person. And I think when you're in politics, right, people create pictures and create narratives and tell stories that may be true, may not be true, but very rarely do they actually talk about that person's character. And Sarah's character is impeccable. Sarah cares so deeply for everyone in this room, but for every single child in our division. In the conversations around the scenes things that happen behind the scenes, and the conversations that she and I would have as chair and vice chair, the thoughtfulness and care with which she mulled over each decision. I think the maturity and the figuring out what's better for the greater good, where Sarah had to make decisions that might have gone against her personal values, but recognized was better for the broader values of the division. and things that were hard for her to sometimes have to vote that way. Or sometimes in ways that she voted her conscience because she felt it was really important for her to stand with those values. But to listen to her wrestle through those things and have those conversations. And I think particularly in an environment that is so polarized, she and I would, we are maybe on different sides of the political spectrum. Sometimes. But I think the relationship that she and I developed over the last 2 years of being able to be from, quote, different sides of the aisle, but to have conversations where we influence each other back and forth. And I think that's what's missing in American politics. And that is what Sarah epitomizes, is that ability to have a perspective and to be willing to be swayed, or even if it doesn't change her mind, being able to come to a place where she understands someone else's perspective and point of view and respects that and has respectful conversation. And in the moments where we decide we agree to disagree, we could put our personal opinions aside and figure out, okay, well, what is the best path forward for the board? And what keeps us down the middle, that's defensible, that makes sense, that's legal. And that right, we're not always going to get a 7-0, but that we could at least get a strong 5-2 on. And I just have learned so much from working with you. I have enjoyed our work conversations at our special office that we would go to. And just like this is a see you later, because this is the first step of many. And when you look at Sarah's resume from CASA, she has a strong resume of public advocacy and public service and really putting forward what is important for communities. And I know Sarah's going to continue to do that. And so I am just excited to see what you do next and how you continue to shape the world and how you continue to think about our local communities and making them better, but in the broader context and navigating all we are. So I am just so grateful for your leadership over the past 2 years and serving with you on the board for the past 3.
Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate that.
Okay, so we came on a tough, let's talk about 2020 first. We had 3 things collide major in our world. We had an election, we had COVID, and we had social justice issues. We had 3 people that were murdered, and we were in lockdown, and people couldn't talk, and people were angry, and we had masking, we had vaccines. And I know for me that school board wasn't on the radar, but a position became open and I wanted to serve. And that's one thing that I know about Sarah, she wanted to serve. She and I did not know each other in 2021 when we ran. The first time I ever saw her was on Zoom. It was The Village, her interview. I was so glad they didn't interview me like that. I don't know how she was still standing afterwards. She took some tough questions. And I remember twice only, they asked her a question that she didn't know the answer to. And she said, I haven't had that experience. I can't relate to that, but I'd like to learn more. I'd like to talk to me. I want to understand. And I was like, wow. And then the next time I saw her, I think it was in this room, we were getting acclimated to board. I don't think we really talked. It was just, it's awkward, kind of. And then we had our swearing in, and that's when I saw her family for the first time. She saw my family for the first time. And again, we were just glancing at each other across the room. And it wasn't until we went to the VSBA conference, and Mr. Dowell had to drive separately because he was going to Liberty. So she and I drove together. And that's the first time that hour to Richmond that we actually talked to each other about our families and what we did in the past and this, that, and the other. And so that was a good way for us to at least learn a little bit about each other. And then we went to dinner, and Mr. Dowell joined us, and that's when Ukraine had something happened with Russia and Ukraine, and I didn't know what was going on. And they were just chit-chatting about it, and I felt so awkward. It was on the TV. And then I started talking about sports, and neither one of them knew anything about sports. And I said, oh, gosh. And then on the way back is when I said, I'm going for it. Because as Ms. Donner said, there were a lot of things swirling when we both ran. I was in Antifa. I was teaching I was in the Black Lives Matter organization.
These are things that were said about you, though.
Yeah, that's the things that were said about me. And also that I was teaching critical race theory. I had taught that in the elementary schools. And with Sarah, she was in QAnon. So I didn't know what QAnon was. So I asked her, and she was like, QAnon. And so I felt like that's when the walls just came down. And they were like, ask me anything. And we just started talking. And I think that was the first step in building our relationship. There were a couple times we went out because I had to ask her questions and she had to ask me, and we would go out to a special place, I think probably the same special place. And we did that. And then the best things were when we go to our conferences. So we went to our first time to San Diego. That's when I found out she could sing, and she found out I could dance. And I can't sing well, and I'm not sure about her dancing. I not got to see her dance. And that was, and again, we had time, we fellowshiped, we ate together, all that. Then we went to Tampa, and we have some funny stories with a napkin that followed us, and a heap of crabs, and, again, bonding, building. And that's with all of us when we've taken advantage of that. Then we went to Houston, Texas. We welcomed our 4 new board members. And there's a video that we'll never be able to show, but we were on this camera that goes around, and it plays music, and so each of us had this thing. And I wish sometimes that people in the community could see that we're normal people, that we do silly things, we do fun things. And
I'm sorry, I don't think we're normal, but there's just...
I'm not going to say what you were holding, but anyway, I was told...
Let me go back on my phone.
I have it on my phone too, but I was told I believe when we say not to share something, out of respect for his chin wasn't there. His chin was not there, but out of respect for my board members, I will not show that video. But then we went to...
Just let her finish.
Some people. So, because if they stepped out of their comfort zone, and I think I don't mind stepping out of my comfort zone and keeping it real and being transparent. So anyway, but I respect people that want to not let other people see that they can have a good time. Then we went to Atlantic, Georgia, and we went to a speakeasy, and I'm just saying,
Not on the public dime.
not on public dime. No, not on public dime. Yeah, we have.
He's like, these two on this side of the room, like, we were not there.
So we do.
Remember hot dogs?
Yeah,
that
glizzies,
day?
we
Remember?
talked about all kinds of fun things. And that's what I miss. And again, whenever I needed to talk with her about anything that I didn't understand, and she did the same with me, she'd come to me and say, help me to understand this. And we would have those conversations. And it was, I think after she moved from vice chair to chair, when I decided, hey, that's vice chair and chairs, it can work, And it's not that I didn't see it, the first 2 years it was different. And so, but that's when I first decided, hey, I'd like to lead like that. I'd like to do that. And it was because of Sarah's leadership. And I'm like everyone else. I never say goodbye. I just say, I know where you live. So she knows where I live. And I know I won't stop asking her questions, and I'm sure she will ask me some questions from time to time. But so everybody gets, I don't understand, I'm gonna put in a request. Can we move from Jefferson cups? I think men might want a tie, a little sterling silver tie clamp, and even ladies, like, we could get a cuff, a little cuff, a little silver cuff.
I will be.
Yeah, something like Jefferson. My son, I have a bunch stacked in the china cabinet. He goes, "What do you get those for?" And I said, "Well, when you do a good job, you get them." He goes, "What do you do with them?" I said, "You just stack one on top of the other." So if you have a bunch in your china cabinet,
Thank you. I'm very grateful for this gift.
I don't know
Thank
what
you.
it says on it.
It's
but,
okay. I'm sure it's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, like the silver, like for the guys, or something like that. When they their years.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Oh, we're
have
still
one
coming
more.
back. Oh my gosh.
Can you actually use the Jefferson cups?
You probably can.
I don't know what you
I
do
will
with
open
them.
it since we have time to kill.
For what?
Decorative, but like
It's lovely.
It's just. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. Oh damn.
Wow.
Oh, we were waiting for a delivery.
I delivered it. So,
Into throw that.
okay, I'm succinct, so I'm.
hence while he was arm wrestling me to be last. I was like,
Okay,
that makes
wow.
sense.
Get on the
I'll
mic.
move out the way. No.
Goodness.
I'm always succinct, so
Pick it up to
everything's been said. So I just want to add that the residents of Roberts District and I wish to express our deep appreciation for your generous, kind, and collegial service on the WJCC School Board. Your leadership was brilliant, truly inspiring. Again, thank you for your dedication to ensuring an excellent educational experience for every student in our division. Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you all so very much. I really appreciate it. I'm not gonna drag this out much longer. I know everyone wants to go home. And I don't want to make it, I guess, don't want to make it about me. I guess this time it is, but. No, I really just want to express gratitude. I want to express gratitude to my constituents for this experience, for this opportunity, and the privilege to serve the WJCC school system. I believe we have a wonderful school system, and it's truly a privilege to have the opportunity to be part of making it even better and adapting to the future that is coming. I want to say thank you to all those who have supported me and encouraged me along the way, colleagues, friends, family, people who supported me in various campaigns. Couldn't have done it without you, and there's so much support and just moral support and encouragement that's needed when you're going through something like that. So I appreciate everyone who supported me. I want to thank all the staff. Well, no, I can't see half of them, but the staff in this room especially, probably the people I've interacted with the most on a regular basis over the last 2 years, but also all the staff, the principals at all the schools, all the staff I've interacted with at every school and every department. Everyone has always been completely professional. Just wonderful to work with, and I know that you are all top notch, every one of you. And a lot of what you do doesn't get seen and it doesn't get talked about, and there are hours and hours of work probably that go into just one slide, and I recognize that, and we don't probably recognize it quite enough, but I know that, and this board knows that, and we really appreciate how hard you all work. I want to thank my family, especially my kids. My kids have borne the brunt of the sacrifice part of public service. They are right now. They're probably not too sad. They're eating pizza and not going to bed. But there have been a lot of time. There's a lot of time away from home. A lot of preoccupation, as one of you said, maybe you. That there's probably hasn't been a day for 4 years that I haven't thought about the school board, and that is 100% true. It does occupy a lot of your brain space, but so I thank you to my family and my kids for being supportive and being okay with that, and being okay with having their mom be on the school board in the schools. I want to thank my past school board colleagues who welcomed me when I was new. None of who are still in this room, but they taught me a lot. All of them, all 6 of them, especially those who served as my mentors, Kira Cook and then Greg Dowell when he was chair. And I want to thank Dr. Heron. Those 3 people invested in me, saw something in me, and encouraged me to proceed with leadership, and that I learned probably the most from them, those 3. And so I thank them for their support as a board member, and then also in my campaign. And I want to thank Dr. Keever. I'm extremely proud to have been part of the group that selected you. I believe that you are the right person at this time to lead us. I believe in your vision, and I believe you're going to execute it. And so if that's the only thing that I did, that would be probably the most consequential thing. And so I wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing where you go from here. Beth, I want to thank you especially. You, my goal is to not cry tonight. No, you were always a bright spot, always, no matter what was going on. And there's 1,000 things that you do, 1,000 things you remember and think of before we think to ask. You've already thought of it and have done it and taken care of it. And you do that with such a cheerful attitude and such a willing, giving spirit. But not only that, not only your, how you've been in your role as clerk and as assistant to the board, but you've been a wonderful thought partner. And I have really appreciated being able to talk through lots of things with you. And I just appreciate your intellect and the way you think through things. And just wanted to say that. And so then, of course, my board colleagues, I'm not going to go through each and every one of you, which is also not the last time we're going to talk to each other. But I do want to thank all of you. I want to thank Kim. So Kim has, been my buddy from the beginning. We're the longest serving members together. And I have genuine affection and respect for you. And I consider you a dear friend, and we'll continue that. I want to thank Andrea, who's been my vice chair our vice chair for 2 years. We have had a wonderful partnership, and it has meant a lot to me to be able to talk through things and to work through things and be able to form a trusting relationship where that's possible, because you don't learn in an echo chamber. You learn by interacting with people who see things differently and think differently. And I think that's one of the strengths of this board. We're a diverse board in many, many ways. And as long as we do keep communicating and talking, you can get through it. I have watched, especially the four newbies. I don't know if you're allowed to be called that anymore. I have watched the 4 of you grow tremendously as board members and as colleagues, and I've watched you all, the 6 of you, grow as a team, and that has been wonderful to see. I know that doesn't mean everybody agrees on everything, and that's okay. But I have watched this group gel and be able to do really big things because you were willing to do that. And so, not surprisingly, because this is something that you guys mentioned a few times already, but sorry, in my last remaining moments on this platform, I want to urge every one of you to remember this year's theme, which is United in Purpose, Inspired by Possibilities. And this is not just a pithy slogan. It is incumbent upon the 6 of you to stay united and stay united around your true purpose, which is the students, and which is the academic achievement and the success of our students. you have to stay united in purpose in order to inspire possibilities for the kids and the generations to come. Don't let division pull you apart. We've all proven that it can be done. You can have hard conversations. You can disagree. Sometimes you work it out. Sometimes you agree to disagree. But I really do want to urge you all to continue the legacy of find common ground first. Continue to communicate with every board member, honestly, respectfully, ask for opinions, ask for feedback and things you don't want to hear, and just continue what we've started. Because I think we did a lot of really, really good work, and it would be sad to see that not be able to move forward. And I know the character of all 6 of you. You're all very good people. You have good hearts. You have good intentions for the school division. And so I know that the school board and the school division is in excellent hands with all of you and with Dr. Kiever. And so I'm grateful. Thank you for letting me say a few words. Thank you for being such a wonderful team to work with and making it easy to lead, even when the circumstances weren't easy. So thank you all, and thank you for all the lovely comments tonight and the gifts, and it's extremely meaningful to me. So everything happens for a reason, everything lasts for a season, and this isn't sad. I'm not sad, and so you shouldn't be sad either. And one of the best things is now that maybe some of the relationships that had to be strictly professional or more professional now can blossom into friendships moving forward. So that is my takeaway. So thank you all so much. Thank you all. And now I have to log back into, what's that?
Can I make one more comment?
You can make one more comment.
There's somebody's birthday.
Oh, yes.
Dr. Kiever. But we would escape without acknowledging it's Dr. Kiever's
It is
birthday.
Dr. Kiever's birthday.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
No. I should say with Vic, like Mike, no.
Do you want to sing? Is that what you're
do
trying to
No, you can sing. You're the singer. Happy I can do the backup dance.
Yeah. No, thank you. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
All right, upcoming events. Special Education Committee Special Education Advisory Committee will meet on January 14th at 5 p.m. in room 108, the school board and central office. We're Ready Advisory Committee will meet on January 21st at 3:30 p.m. at Lafayette High School Media Center. And upcoming meetings, the next meeting will be on January 6th. Budget work session will begin at 4 p.m. in room 300 at the Annex, followed by closed session on January 6th at 6 p.m. in room 300 of the Annex, followed by organizational meeting, work session, and action items at 6:30 p.m. here in room 300 of the Annex. And then that's a lot in January. Budget work. Good luck with that. Budget work session on January 13th at 5:30 p.m. in room 300. There's a budget work session on January 26th at 4 p.m. in room 300 of the Annex. And then there's closed session on January 20th at 6 p.m. in room 200 at Berkeley Middle School, followed by regular meeting with pre-budget public hearing, meeting at 6:30 p.m. in the Berkeley Middle School auditorium. And your agenda items are set for the next meeting. This meeting is adjourned.